Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to a special broadcast. We're honoring one of my favorite comic writers of all time, Mr. Tom DeFalco. He is celebrating 50 years of writing comics. He started in 1972, and he is still going strong. So let's introduce the man of the hour. We have Tom DeFalco right here. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, Brad. How's it going?
How are you, man?
After 50 years, I'm kind of tired.
Well, we have a baker's dozen of guests that will wake you up throughout this broadcast. So I thought we'd talk a little bit before we start. And you remember the show, This Is Your Life? Well, here you go, Tom. This is your life. I thought we'd go over some of my favorites runs that you've ever done. This is obviously a Spider-Man show. You started with a classic 252. And any thoughts looking back at this? These are some classic comics from a Spider-Man fan.
When I look back on the run that Ron and I ended up being on,
yeah,
I'm always reminded of the fact that we were essentially two fill-in guys. Ron was supposed to be on there for just a few issues, while John Romita Jr. Got the X-Men on time. John was planning to come back.
Right.
And I remember when Danny Fingeroth invited me to write Amazing Spider-Man, I told him that I didn't think I could do the dialogue. I didn't think I could, I didn't think I was up for the job.
Okay.
And, he was convinced I was, and I thought, okay, so he had me script a couple of issues over Ron Frenz's, Roger Stern's plots. And I thought, anybody who follows Roger Stern is an idiot.
You did it, though, and you did it well. And
I still look back on Roger Stern's run, and I still love that run.
Look at this. You had to follow Walt Simonson, too. I mean, and you still do a great job. I mean, look at this. You follow a bunch of people and you make the book your own. Your run on Thor is also amazing with Ron Frenz. Thoughts? Was this one of your favorite runs also?
I loved all of my runs. I mean, I loved working on them. In order to work on any monthly book, you have to, commit fully to the character.
Right.
You have to really fall in love with the character, his or her world, and just bury yourself in it, because for you guys it's a 15 minutes once a month.
Right.
For us guys, it's 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's a 40 plus hour gig. And you followed Walt Simonson again on the Fantastic Four. Look at this run. I love this run with the late, great Paul Ryan. This was also an amazing run.
Yeah. Paul was a fantastic artist. I asked for the most ridiculous things, and he could draw them.
He got them for you.
Yeah.
And one run that is especially beloved by Spider fans, and I will pull it up, of course, is when you just thought it would be a brief run, I imagine, on What If, and you introduced Mayday. Mayday is one of the best Spider characters of all time.
We, when we did the What If, we thought it was just going to be a one and done.
Yeah.
I remember as Ron was finishing up the issue, he said, "Do you think we can ever do a sequel to this?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't know. It's a what if. Maybe in a year or so."
Right.
And then Bob Harris, the editor-in-chief at the time, he asked me if I could do 6 issues of Spider-Girl, and I said, "Yeah, I'm sure we could do 6 issues." And then later on, he said, "Can you do 12? Can you do 6 more?" I said, "Yeah, we could do 6 more."
Right.
And then he said, "We're going to end this thing at issue 15. Can you go to 3 more issues?" I said, "Sure." And then he said, I think we're going to need another issue. Can you do a 16th issue?" "Yeah, sure." And then he said, "I think we're going to do 6 more." They kept asking us to do 6 more and 6 more.
Right.
Up until I think it was issue 60 was going to be the end. This is it.
Right.
That's going to be the end of Spider-Girl.
But the fans literally demanded more.
The fans kept demanding more. It was Spider-Girl was one of these flukes because in the direct market, sales only go down, except for Spider-Girl, where sales would either be
nice
consistent.
To be the odd thing that sells well. We went over the history. Your first work was at Archie Comics, and you sent me a scan. So let me pop this up. Was this your first story right here? The delivery dumbbell?
that was my first 5-page story.
There you go.
An appropriate title.
And we have some other early art and comics from you. This one, Charlton, Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch.
Yep.
Tell me about Wheelie.
Well,
is it like Herbie, the love bug?
Sort of, kind of. They basically had all these, animated cars.
Okay.
And I remember when they gave me the assignment, I thought, what the heck do you do with these things? They sent me the first 2 issues, and they forgot to name in the first 2 issues a problem which is I see more and more in today's comic. They didn't name any of the characters.
Oh.
So I had to describe the characters in the script. I figured
like with Transformers, Marvel named Optimus Prime, right?
Right.
So you can name these cars. Why not?
Well, no, they actually had names because they were based on a cartoon series.
And some other early work you have, Hong Kong Phooey.
Hong Kong Phooey.
There you go, man. There's another car.
Yeah.
With the cat in it. There you go. And we got some Scooby-Doos you wrote.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And
we have Yogi Bear.
Yogi Bear.
The party line.
And I did a bunch of Flintstones things too.
Yes.
They basically Charlton assigned me 8 bi-monthly comic books.
Right.
So I had to do a book a week for them. And I was still working at Archie at the time, so I still had to do my Archie work.
Right.
And then I would still go into the office, I think, 2 or 3 days a week. That's, when I learned the importance of 15-hour days.
Right. And your first DC, you sent me a copy, is the Super Juniors Holiday Special.
Yep.
Baby Superman.
Baby Superman, baby Wonder Woman, baby Flash. This was originally supposed to be a treasury-sized book.
Okay.
And then DC decided, as we finished it, DC decided they were going to get out of the treasury business.
Right.
And then they, put it in inventory for years, and it eventually came out as a digest book.
Looks like March of '85. It looks like up there.
Yeah, something like that. So it was supposed to be this big, and it came out this big.
Big ideas and a small package is what it eventually came in. And your first Marvel, tell me about this one. I Won't Kiss That Evil Away. There you go. What is this book?
Okay, so
what is up with that story, Tom?
I was doing all sorts of things for Joe Orlando, some commercial comics and that sort of stuff, some proposals for Yuma Comics and that. And at one point, Joe said to me, have you ever thought about doing straight stuff, the superhero stuff?
Right.
And I said, Joe, that stuff looks so hard. And he said to me, well, here's the thing, kid. You have to do, characterization. You can do that. You have to be able to plot. You can do that. But here's the kicker. It doesn't have to be funny.
Oh,
so
yep.
They're paying you the same rate, and you're only doing half the work.
Well, there you go.
And I thought, wow, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be funny. Wow. Like that
work smarter, not harder,
Yeah. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll take a shot at something. And then I got a call from Denny O'Neil, who said he was assigned to do some love comics. And he asked me to do do a love comic because he said it's just like Archie, and I thought it's nothing like Archie. I don't know what the heck they're talking about, but I've also got some DC here that you sent me. You've got some Jimmy Olsen that you wrote, and some Starfire.
Yep. And what character is that?
That's just a mystery story. I did a bunch of mystery stories for DC.
Right. And I think the next image is when you went to Marvel. This was your first Marvel story, right?
This is my first Marvel story. They
Double Vision.
They asked me to do a tryout story. I think it's a 6-page story. And I remember that Jim Shooter was impressed because there was a beginning, middle, and end, a couple of conflicts, and I used all of the Vision powers in 6 pages.
Well, there you go.
And I also remember that he gave it to an artist who said it was impossible to draw.
Well, great. Thanks.
He said you couldn't break it down. And I said, yes, you can. And here's some inside baseball.
Yeah.
When I worked at Archie, we had to do a storyboard where you sketch out the story by panel. When panel by panel. When I worked for Charlton, I would do. They wanted a full script like DC, so I would have to, because I was used to sketching out the story. I'd sketch out the story, and I'm a lousy artist, and I'd break it down panel by panel, and then I would translate that into a full script. When I worked for Marvel, I did the breakdown, and then I tried to translate that into a plot. So when Shooter said you can't do it in 6 pages, I said sure you can, and I pulled out the 6 pages. I showed him panel by panel how you could do it, in 5 or 6 panels a page. He looked at it and said, "You're absolutely right. The artist is wrong."
Well, and there you go. And your first time writing Spider-Man, Peter Parker 41 spec.
Yep.
There you go.
It was supposed to be I think it was supposed to be a Marvel team-up fill-in, and then it up to be the spectacular Spider-Man fill-in.
Right. Did you always have a love of Spider-Man? I mean, was it just a big thrill when you got to write him?
Oh yeah. I mean, Spider-Man. Growing up, my first Marvel comics was Fantastic Four 3 and 4, which were a revelation to me because there was just something magical about those comic books.
Right.
And I became a hardcore Marvel fan, and I loved the Fantastic Four. And then when Amazing Fantasy 15 came out, man, I loved that character. But they canceled the book, so I didn't think I'd ever see him again. When one day I walked into the newsstand and saw Spider-Man #1, I was thrilled. I love Spider-Man.
So we've got comments coming in. I was juggling stuff, so we've got Hornacek says, Shooter, quote, DeFalco, you've done it again for when you figured out how to fix that problem. Scott says, thank you, Tom, for all the great comics you wrote and edited throughout your career. Gregory Wright, your friend, didn't you use that story for pencilers to do tryouts?
No, actually, Carl Potts did.
Okay.
Carl Potts dug up that story and figured this is a hard story to draw. So he would a whole generation of artists he would give that to let them try out to see if they could do storytelling.
Right, gotcha. And Ryan says would love more Mayday. And when you say Mayday, you have to say Ron Friends. And I've said Ron Friends 4 times, so here's Ron Friends right here. What's going on, Ron?
I recognize you.
How you doing, Brad? Hi, Thomas.
You're like Beetlejuice. I said your name and you appear, Ron.
Well, you're in charge of the switch there, Brad. So
Well, that's true. I did hit the button to bring you in, didn't I?
There you go.
But by the way, the hands you see clapping off panel every once in a while is my lovely wife, who is.
Hi, Hildy.
She
Hi,
keeps
Hildy.
popping in and out.
Tom, those two, Ron and Hildy, are the ones that put me up to bring all your friends here to roast the heck out of you.
And I'm never going to forgive
Hildy.
She blamed you.
You can try.
So, Ron, what do you think of this guy?
It's
been a passable partner for the last 30 years or so. So I think I'll keep him.
I've been riding on Ron's coattails for years.
Yeah, that's what
Whenever you see a story, the stuff that you liked, that's what he put in. The stuff you don't like, that's what I put in.
We'll call it mutual coattail hanging. Okay. But I have a surprise. I think Tom was half expecting this, but I actually have a surprise for you. It's somebody that we both worked with for a period of time. And your glasses. Anyway,
some people have props. He has people.
It's somebody we both worked with for a period of time. Somebody that is a big fan favorite, and like I said, I think you were probably half expecting this. But Brad, everybody at home, please welcome the mighty Thor. Is here.
Good Lord!
You wanted to stop by and say hi.
We got a full screen. Hold on.
DeFalco's son. Tom DeFalco.
Tom, yes.
Tom DeFalco. My tiny friend Ronald, has asked me to stop by and wish thee a merry birthday.
No, it's his anniversary.
It's not a birthday.
Anniversary.
Oh, your anniversary.
They don't celebrate
50 years anniversary in comics. Verily, thou hast scribed many of my greatest adventures, except for that time that you gave Steve Rogers and made him worthy to handle Mjolnir. You must have been feeling very unwell to have used such a bonehead idea as that.
Well, that wasn't Tom's idea. That was our anchor. And anchors are known to be bonehead.
He should be smited.
Smited. We'll smite him. Be sure to smite him. Thank you, Thor. That was wonderful. And he wrote it all himself. He really did. Look.
It sounds like his kind of writing.
Go stop.
I drove 6 hours from Delaware for this.
Man, not Delaware.
Asgard. Asgard.
Ron, we don't want to give away his identity, but who was that masked man? Or he wasn't masked. Who was that haired man?
That was the mighty Thor, Odin's son.
Okay.
Who was that masked man? He's not wearing a mask, Brad. You say silly things.
Who is that two-paid man?
Brett Reading.
Brett. Okay. That's awesome. I do know Brett Reading. I just don't know the face. I know the art. The very nice.
Yeah, nobody wants to know his face.
And you need to know the theme. They sing his theme. No, anyway, but yes. Do you have any other questions for me about Tom, Brad?
Yes. Funny Tom stories. Roast him,
please. I have no funny Tom stories. It's always
okay. Sad, depressing Tom stories.
The only real Tom story I have is a Tom story I've been telling for nigh on 25, 30 years.
Okay.
Where we were at, I believe it was San Diego, but I don't remember. Tom can fill in some blanks. But we were waiting for the elevator with the wonderful creator Len Wein, who has since left us. But the three of us were waiting by the elevator when the X-Men came into the hallway.
Okay.
And it was a large contingent of X-Men. And for some reason, Rogue was bending over to fix her boot or something like that. And I kind of turned and started because I didn't want to stare. And Tom saw that. And as Rogue straightened up, he said, "Excuse me, Rogue, you're hurting my friend." And she turned and said, "Oh, hi, how are you guys doing?" and everything. And I said, "Fine." I said, but I felt I had to say something because I didn't want Tom to be flirting for me. So I said, I'll never be able to draw Rogue the same way again.
Oh, jeez.
And that's when she said, "Oh, how long have you known I'm a guy?" which at that point I just kind of stood there.
Wow.
With my eyes wide. I said, "Well, obviously great costume, but obviously, And DeFalco was just there with his jaw hanging down like,
oh man,
the entire time. So the elevator door opens and all the X-Men get on, and Rogue says, "There's room for you guys." And the three of us just kind of said, No, you guys go ahead. You guys go ahead.
And then we collapsed in laughter.
And that's why you guys don't write and draw X-Men anymore.
Actually, I've never handled the X-Men. But anyway, and that's
all
why.
because of the elevator. That's why.
That's why. But we all stood there at the elevator, and Len Wein, I think, was the first one to go, guys, and we also all started laughing. And Tom's comment was, I'm not upset to find out I'm gay. I just always thought I would know. And we were getting in the elevator to go up to the penthouse for one of the many parties that surround conventions and the like. And in the elevator, Tom swore us all to secrecy that we would never tell anybody else this story. Okay?
Well, welcome to the internet now, Ron.
Nobody must ever speak of it again. So we get to the party. Len, Tom, and I split and go our separate ways. And at one point, I'm standing there at the party chatting with a group of people, and somebody comes over and pats me on the back and says, "Boy, that rogue thing must have really been shocking, huh?" Where the hell did you hear about the rogue thing? And he goes, DeFalco's over holding court telling everybody about it.
I wanted to be the one to tell the story.
And then one of the times I was in New York, I walked into Tom's office and he had a big framed picture of that group of X-Men, personally autographed by Rogue. So there you go.
That's evil. That's so funny, though.
That's one of my Tom DeFalco's. That's one I can tell.
Yeah. It didn't sound like you're holding anything back. That was a good one. What's it like to work with him as a penciler and having a script come in from DeFalco? What's that like?
It's terrific. He has to be one of the, if not the most collaborative fellow creator I've ever worked with, which is one of the reasons why we've clicked and one of the reasons that we've become friends, because he believes that if you're going to write 12 issues of anything a year, you need to be able to take ideas. He's just a very unjealous creator. He's very open to collaboration and welcomes you into, whatever your insights are in the character and everything. Plus, he has a wonderful element of the teacher in him. I've learned a lot from Tom over the years, because if you make a suggestion, if you have an idea and you want to pitch something, he won't. I've had some writers who will just dismiss it out of hand, or will decide not to use it because they're afraid if they're not supplying all the ideas, then they might lose their job as a writer, that kind of thing. Tom has no issues like that. But if he doesn't think the idea works, he won't dismiss it out of hand. He'll tell you why it doesn't work. And we'll work with you to try to, make it. There are a lot of times that I've pitched ideas for like Spider-Girl that, quite frankly, weren't Spider-Girl ideas, because I was trying to include as much of the MC2 universe as possible. And Tom would say, that's a really neat idea, but it's not a Spider-Girl idea. How do we make it Spider-Girl centric? And we'll still pursue the idea, but we'll pursue it through the correct lens and for all the right reasons. So, I've come up with a lot of ideas, some of them very personal. And that if you hand it over to DeFalco, it's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's going to be clearly told, and it's going to be well told, and it's going to have a soul. And you can't ask for more from a partner. I'll work with Tom anytime on anything.
Tom, any rebuttal? You like Ron?
I didn't say I liked him.
Oh, okay.
Where in that whole, run the tape, Brad. I didn't say I liked him.
So Ron is very generous, and he's generous with his ideas. I've always found one thing very frustrating about Ron.
Oh, here we go.
No, this is, I'm serious about this, because it really pisses me off. There are times when I work out a bit of business, a bit of visual business, and I kind of work it out, and I do my sketches, I plot it out, and I send the plot to Ron, and Ron looks and goes, well, hey, that's a lot of fun. But what if we do this? And he comes up with a different visual that is always better. And I find that very annoying.
That's why you were paying me, editor-in-chief.
And I think it's so important, because, artists live in the visual.
Yeah.
One thing with Ron, and he's gotten better over the years. In the past, he could never stop drawing. We would go out to dinner, and he'd be eating his meal with one hand and sketching with the other. Yes, you used to do that all the time. You would always sketch the waitresses on your napkins, and then either give them to me to hand to them.
Hand this to Rogue. No.
Yeah.
Keep in
And
mind
Ron's sketches are fabulous.
Yeah.
please keep in mind that he's a creative writer, and I don't remember that at all.
I remember that constantly.
Well, we have a few more quote unquote friends of Tom that join us. We have Rogue. No, I'm just kidding. We have JM DeMatteis. Welcome, JM. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
Are you in
Hello,
the mood
Tom.
for roast?
Hey,
I don't have that much time, so I don't want to roast Tom. He's too nice to roast. But
Okay.
I'll tell you the story, true story of the first time we met, which, Tom, you probably don't remember this. Tom was editing Marvel Team Up at the time. I was brand new to Marvel. Maybe I'd done a couple of fill-ins, and a shooter just brought me over. And I wanted to go pitch some Marvel Team Ups ideas to Tom. Well, Tom at the time, he probably doesn't remember this either. His desk was on a platform that was about 4 feet in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Giant desk, and he would sit at this big chair. He doesn't remember. And he would sit there in this giant desk on this platform just to intimidate people. And he glowered at you. Not a smile would pass his face. And I pitch him like 3 ideas for Marvel Team Up. He gets up from his chair. He jumps down from the 4-foot platform. He grabs me by the lapels, throws me against the wall, and actually punched me right in the face. And he said to me, if you ever bring me terrible ideas like that again, you will rue the day that you were born. He actually said, rue the day. I've never met anybody who actually said rue the day. And he did. He said that. And because of that, though, I so wanted to please him that I became a better writer. So I owe my entire career to Tom for that day when he punched me in the face in his office.
So
that's a true story. It's a true story.
No, it's an exaggeration. The platform was only 3.5 feet high.
So he ruled by fear. I get you. I got you.
Actually, it is so the opposite of that. And Tom is and always has been one of the nicest human beings I've ever worked with in this business from the day I started with Tom. I don't know if you remember this, and this is the true part. I was still new to Marvel. I was working on Marvel Team Up. Shooter probably forced you to hire me on that book. And every time I turn in a script, the phone would ring and Tom would call me up to tell me how much he loved the script. Now, I don't know if he was telling the truth or not, but it made me feel really good to know that my editor was taking the time to tell me how much he loved that script and enjoyed it. And that bolstered me, and that was the kind of editor he was, and a really skilled editor at that too. Right. And the other thing that I want to say to define Tom when he was editor, to move him from editor to editor-in-chief, and maybe you've heard this story before. We were putting together the Clone Saga. We had all the writers, all the artists locked away in some conference room in Manhattan, and this idea came up, and we all got very excited about it. And Tom was not one of the writers on the books; he was editor-in-chief at the time. Danny Fingeroth, who was our editor, went and told Tom this wonderful idea that we had about the Clone Saga. Tom instantly decided it was the worst idea he'd ever heard and came to the meeting the second day to tell us that we couldn't do the idea. We were all so excited about the idea that we convinced him not only to let us to do the idea, but for Tom to take over as the writer of Spectacular Spider-Man. When he was editor-in-chief, he was not ruling by fear. He was not putting himself on a platform above anyone. He always treated us like equals. Awesome. And I always felt like Tom was a friend right from the start. So, like I said, nothing but good things to say about Tom.
Awesome. Tom, rebuttal? Did you have a platform? Did you rule in fear? Were you a nice guy? Go ahead.
I don't remember how. Listen, I'm a fan of the medium, and I always loved JM's work. I call him Mark. I always loved his work because his work is so different from mine. He approaches it in such a dramatically different way from the way I approach stories, that I found his stuff, fascinating and enjoyable, and I still love it to this day, because he has such a philosophical way and such a beautiful way of putting words together that I love his stuff, and I love him too.
I love you too, Tom. And now we've admitted it in public.
Oh no!
See, I always thought if I was gay, I would know it.
There's a theme tonight. What?
I'm glad I'm one of the first ones, so I can get out soon here.
Any funny JM story? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, the other thing that happens, we've all been doing this for a really long time. And at a certain point, what happens is that it stops being a professional relationship and it starts becoming a real friendship, Yeah. And Tom, I have cherished your friendship all these years. I really have. So thank you.
I feel the same way, sir.
Yeah.
Tom, any Mark stories that come to mind that are fun and that you can share?
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here.
I'm not very interesting or amusing. So,
Wait a minute. No, I can think of one. Mark's wife was the minister who married Hildy and I.
Oh, that's cool.
And the day before we're getting married, we were standing out there, and she starts to talk to us about our vows. And I always, being a very serious man, never to make light of any situation. As we're going over the vows, said to her, "Well, what about the honor and obey part?" And as I said that, Mark, I could see him smile and turn his head away. I don't know if you remember. You smiled. You turned your head away. As Diane started to fume. And of course, I'm trying to be oblivious. No, they don't say that anymore. You sure? Yeah. And Hildy and I, of course, had discussed this previously, so she was just ready to, smack me in the head because she knew I was just, goofing around. But I remember watching you smile and just trying to turn away so that you wouldn't burst into laughter because you realize what was going on right away.
It's funny. My wife made me take that part out of the vows to also LD. So
this does not fly anymore. No,
it doesn't. We have more.
Not for the woman.
Yes, it is. We have more friends of DeFalco. We have Carl Potts in the house. What's up, Carl?
Hello.
Hey, Carl.
Hey.
Welcome. All right. So we have Tom on a pedestal. We got a rogue love affair. Carl, top those stories.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know if I can top them, but I got a couple from right when early in Tom's reign as editor-in-chief.
Okay.
Right after that, he was a guest at, I think it was a convention in Oakland, WonderCon in Oakland. And I was editing a book where the writer and the artist had been a little miffed at me because the book had a big constant turnover and characters in it all the time. And I insisted that every issue, establish and reestablish the long and short-term status quo while on the run so that we could hopefully attract new readers and instead of just fighting a battle of attrition to hold on to the readers. And those two creators cornered Tom at the Oakland Con and complained about it. So Tom comes back from this convention early in his reign as editor-in-chief and comes in, and I'm going to do my best Ralph Macchio version of impersonating Tom DeFalco. And he goes, "Hey, I didn't know what a good editor you was until those guys complained about you." And shortly after that, I wanted to try and bring back some of the fun Marvel had around the bullpen and all that. And I did something fairly unusual for me, which was to try and start my own kind of practical joke at the office. And I brought in my collapsible travel fishing pole. And I went into Ralph Macchio's office and put it together and had this invisible, monofilament line on it, very thin. And it was unusual at Marvel then because the 10th floor window is actually open. Most New York buildings don't do that.
Right.
And Ralph had this 6-inch figure, Dark Side action figure that had glowing eyes on it. And we tied it on and had it, kind of bouncing, walking down the sidewalk next to the people 10 floors below. And every once in a while, someone would go to grab it and we'd yank it up over the awning of the furniture store down there. It looked like it just disappeared. And to me, like, it was the ideal practical joke because there's nobody who's like the butt of the joke. Everybody's having a good time. And the people that would from Marvel would be walking in and out from the side door of the 28th floor, 28th Street door. And most of them thought it was funny too. But one of them was the office manager at the time who didn't have much of a sense of humor. And she thought it was just horrible what we were doing. So she walked up to publisher Mike Hobson's office on the 11th floor and complains. And Mike comes down to the editorial row, opens Ralph's door, and I happen to be the one with the pole out the window. And Ralph's sitting at the desk taking a real actual business call. So he looks like he's totally innocent. Chisa gestures at me and shrugs and kind of tries to throw me under the bus. And Mike wasn't fooled, though. And he's stroking his mustache and goes, "Boys, what are you doing?" And, so I quickly reeled it in and disassembled it. And Mike said something about going down to talk to Tom about it. So for the rest of the day, I'm expecting to be called down to Tom's office and reamed out over this outrage. And 5 o'clock passes. I haven't heard from Tom. 5:30 comes around. I figure I better go down there and see what the hell's up. So I go in and I ask Tom, was there something you wanted to see me about? And he goes, "No, what?" And I go, did Hobson come down here? And he goes, "Yeah." I closed the door and he said, "You know what those guys are doing?" And Tom says, "What guys?" And he says, "Bots and Macchio." And as he's trying to say it, he starts howling with laughter. And that made me realize that the culture that we'd had before things had gotten dark for a while had returned. And now I was working for the right guys.
That's awesome. I love that you were dangling a DC action figure out the Marvel offices, not a Spider-Man figure, a Dark Side.
Dark Side. And actually, Mike came into the office and said, "Do you know what those two idiots are doing?" And I looked at it and said, "Which two idiots?"
Narrow it down.
We had more than enough. And then he started to tell me, and he did burst into laughter. And he laughed so hard, I had this couch in my office. He fell on the couch, and he just couldn't stop laughing. When he finally calmed down, he told me the story. And he said, "Yes, Carl is just, fishing outside the window, and poor Ralph is trying to work." And I said, "Poor Ralph?" I said, "Mike, wake up. You know Ralph." And he said, "Don't forget to go talk to those guys." I said, "Yep, I'll talk to them."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I walked down and I said to Ralph, I said, "Don't fish out the window anymore." And he says, "Are we in trouble?" And I said, "I don't think so." And I'm sorry, Carl. I got distracted and never got to you.
That's funny. Well, since we're on the topic of practical jokes, one of your guests, it was Carl, wanted me to ask you about you and Mark Gruenwald played a series of practical jokes on each other without discussing the practical jokes, and it ended up with you being in trouble at airport security.
Oh. One time they cut out, they folded up some piece of aluminum in the shape of a gun.
Oh God!
Jeez.
And they stuck it into my carry-on.
Oh no!
And this is way before airport security became what airport security was. So it goes through the scanner, and they're looking at it going, "What the heck? What is that thing?" And they open up my bag, and they can't find it because it's under the lining.
Oh.
and they keep running it through, and they lift it up, and they finally find it. And meanwhile, I'm completely oblivious. I don't know what the heck they're talking. I thought, I didn't know what. And they hold it up, and I go, oh God. And they said, what is this? And I said, I work for Marvel Comics.
Go on through.
And they go, oh. that was more than enough explanation. And meanwhile, Grooney is waiting for me and sweating bullets because I don't know how he expected me to react. So I get my bag. They put everything back. I go and join Mark, and he goes, "Was there a problem?" No, not really. Let's go. But we never discussed our practical jokes. One of the things Grooney used to do all the time is whenever I'd be on a business trip, and they used to send me on a lot of them, anything to keep me out of the office so I couldn't screw things up. Mark would rearrange my bookshelves. Sometimes he'd put the books in alphabetical order, sometimes reverse alphabetical order, sometimes by character. He just rearranged the bookshelves. He must have spent a lot of time doing that on a regular basis. I would always walk into the office, look to try to figure out how he had rearranged it this time. And then later on in the day, or the next day, I'd be talking to him and say, yeah. Like in this story, and I'd walk to the bookshelf and pull out the book I needed exactly and hand it to him without ever mentioning the fact that I knew he rearranged the bookshelf.
That's funny. We had another practical joke question, or not practical joke, but a funny incident about when President Jim Galton was president of Marvel, and the company culture was to be modeled by those at the top. And they want to know the time Galton came down to your office and saw you deep in thought. Remember that? Talk about that story.
I was sitting at my desk, my feet up on the desk, staring at the wall.
Okay.
What had happened is earlier, I think it was Ralph and Mark had come in. They were working on the Avengers, and they ran into a wall, plotting a story, and they couldn't figure out how to resolve it. So they explained to me what the problem was, and I was sitting there thinking about it, and I finally figured out how to resolve the plot. And as I got off my chair, I started to walk down to the office, and my secretary was there, and she said, Jim Galton was here, and he wanted to see you. I said, he was here, and he wanted to see me. She said, yeah. I said, why didn't he come in? He said, I don't know, but he wants you to come up as soon as you're not busy. And I thought, great. The president of the company sees me, my feet up on the desk staring at the wall. So I ran down to Ralph's office. I told him the solution that I thought would work in the story. He liked it. And then I ran up to Galton's office. And I said to Jim, Jim, you were looking for me? He said, yeah. And he wanted to go over something. And I said to him, why didn't you come in? And he said to me, listen, when I see you staring at the wall, I know that's when I'm really getting my money's worth out of you. He says, if you're there filling out forms or working on a budget, I'll just come right in. But if you're staring at the wall, I know you're making money for me. And I thought, man, this guy really understands the creative process.
That's nice, yeah.
And here's the thing with Jim Galton. For years, I always thought he came from an editorial background. But at a certain point, I discovered he was a former accountant. And it just threw me because, anytime we'd have problems with the accountants or that sort of stuff, he would always go with editorial side, or the sales department. He would always lean toward editorial. So I just assumed he was one of us. And I said that to him one time. I just thought you were an editorial guy. He said, listen here. He said, we're publishing we're publishing comic books here.
Right.
We're not publishing accounting, folders. He said, so I know which side, to back.
That's funny. In chat, we have Greg says, sounds like Brad has done his research with these questions. No, Carl sent me an email to ask these questions. That's what happened.
Okay.
I will not take credit for that. But
Hey,
Carl,
guys,
those were good.
I apologize, but I have to go.
No problem. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Enjoy
for
the rest of
joining
the
us,
night.
Mark.
Tom, always a pleasure. Carl, good to see you, Ron. Bye, everybody.
My best to Diane.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Those stories kind of illustrate that during that period when Galton, Hobson, who is the publisher, and Tom are in charge, it was a great just culture, corporate culture for a creative company. They all had the right attitude. They were, I felt if I had an issue or a problem and a disagreement with any of them, which is very rare, I could give my side and present my case and have an honest chance of, winning them over. Or if they decided they wanted to go in another direction, they knew I wasn't going to half-ass it because it wasn't what I wanted to do. They knew I was going to be a pro and knuckle down and do the best I could. And that was the kind of, professional attitude that I liked. And all the while we're having fun at the same time. So it was just the best place to be.
It was a good
Gregory
talk.
Wright, I recognize the name. Is an artist, right?
Editor, colorist, writer, everything.
There you go. I recognize. He says, when Tom became editor-in-chief, he sent around a memo informing us that the color yellow was not to be used on any hero again because it was the color of cowardice. Some editors did not understand it was his way of making a joke after the previous chief, or was it? Tom, respond.
There was a story about Stan once going and looking at a bunch of covers and studying covers and looking at Iron Man saying, should Iron Man have a nose? Why doesn't Iron Man have a nose?
Yeah.
And somebody overheard Stan say that, and they ran around and they put noses on the armor. And this was published for I think a month or two. And then Stan was looking at covers and he looked, he goes, what the heck? Why does Iron Man have a nose? and that just said to me, you got to be careful of what you say as editor-in-chief, because people may think you're serious. So I figured I'd dispel the fact that I was serious right away with that stupid memo. I think there were a couple of things in that memo, but I remember the yellow.
That's a good one, Gregory. I like that. Hey, let's bring another one of your friends in. Bob Budiansky. What's up, Bob? Welcome to the party.
Bob.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Tom. Tom, it's great being here with you. I'm happy to help you celebrate 50 years in the comic book industry. So, looking forward to the next 50. Anyway, so I'm supposed to figure out something nice to say or something. But, I'll skip past that part. But in any case, so I'll tell a story about Tom's style of running the show. When I was a Marvel editor, Tom was editor-in-chief at this point. And it was really great working with Tom. And what I really liked was how he made decisions. And he looked at every detail. He looked at all the different angles of it, all the different possibilities. And there was one time when in 1990, Marvel had made the decision to bring in-house the licensing of Marvel trading cards, so all the creative was done in-house. So Tom came down to my office. I was an editor. The idea was that Marvel could do it a lot more profitably, they can do a much better job, and it really was kind of like $1 million bet because they were putting a lot of resources into this potentially. So he came down to my office, and he poked his head in the doorway. He said, "Bob, what do you know about trading cards?" I said, "Well, when I was 9 years old, I used to collect baseball cards." He said, "Great. you're now the guy who's in charge of Marvel. Maybe he was there for 30 seconds. I think that's the kind of careful consideration he brought to every one of his decisions while he was editor-in-chief. But I wasn't there for all of them. But anyway.
Well, it worked. Those cards were very successful, Bob.
Yeah,
I loved them.
Tom had an instinct, I guess. I'm not putting him down for it, but he was a busy man.
Those cards.
I guess he went from office to office saying, do this, and he just kind of moved on. And the main thing was for him to clear these jobs off his desk and put them on somebody else's. So, Tom, I admire your style.
What you're not mentioning is you were in charge of our posters previous to that.
Well, I didn't just walk in the door the day before. That is true.
So I thought, Bob's got experience with these single images. So
yeah.
And I thought, and listen, Bob and Carl, I owe you guys a great debt. On many an occasion, the people of the 11th floor and I had disagreements, and occasionally I would be somewhat loud in my disagreements with them on the phone, and I would tell them that I was about I'll be right up there, you guys, and I'd slam down the phone, and then I'd walk out of my office, and Mark Grunwald, Bob, and Carl, the three of them would be at that door. You guys had heard me screaming, let's say talking in an agitated way, and would stand there and then ask me a bunch of silly questions, try to come up with things to distract me, to prevent me from storming upstairs, because you knew that if I had gotten upstairs in that kind of temper, things would not have gone well.
Well, we were afraid if you did something like that, you'd get fired, and then one of us would be the next in line to take all the bullets from upstairs. So we wanted to keep you as a human shield to protect the rest of them.
you were like
nothing to do with you, Tom. It was all
you were like our lead umbrella that was protecting us from radiation from the front row.
Well,
so we appreciate you taking all those arrows for us,
But listen, guys, I do appreciate
you're at a target right now. A target. Well, anyway, I just wanted to go on and say a couple more things. So, first of all, I want to say, Tom, even before he was editor-in-chief, he gave me my first opportunity to draw a full-length Marvel book, which was a What If story. So I thank him for that. He gave me my first opportunity to draw a regular series. Thank him for that. All the years that I worked for him as an editor on his staff when he was editor-in-chief, besides dumping the trading cards on me, which was wonderful, it was a great experience. He gave me all sorts of weird and bizarre projects. We were a great team together. He was, if he knew that you knew something, he gave you autonomy. He worked with you to empower you. He was a great leader and a great boss in that respect. And then if you put out a comic book that maybe didn't hit all the marks, there was some problems with it, he would come in and say, he wouldn't go all crazy. He would say, "You get it right next month." He had a little bit of forgiveness in him, which I think went a long way to getting the support of his editors and making them want to try even harder for the next month. And that was great. He was really a pleasure to work with all those years. And but I do have a long-standing beef with him.
Oh,
he knows. I've talked to him about this on more than one occasion. So in 1985, I was the writer of the Transformers comic book. And in 1985, of all things, Women's Day magazine came to Marvel and asked Marvel to produce a 4-page Transformers story for their Christmas issue, for their December issue of Women's Day magazine. And so Tom came to me. I was the writer, and Herb Trimpe, the late great Herb Trimpe, and he was the artist, and said, "You guys, I need a 4-page story." So I said, "Sure, I can write up a story for you." So So I wrote the story, and Herb did a tremendous job illustrating it. And I included in my script for it, I included our credits. You know, this is like a national magazine. This wasn't just a comic book. And Tom, in his great wisdom, said, nah, no credits. This is coming from Marvel, not from you guys. And like I was like stunned, like Tom, like this is a national magazine. Even if it's Women's Day, it's not just a comic book. You know, like real adults are going to see this sort of thing. I said, nah. So the book went out, and I've never, without credits, I've never forgave him. You know, every time I see him, I always bring it up. Still a thorn in my side. You know. However, this just came out.
I was wrong.
What was that?
You were right, and I was wrong.
Well, yes. Okay, we agree on that. So, so this came out about a month ago.
Here, I'll full screen you. There you go.
Transformers: The Rarity. Okay.
Yeah.
The first reprint. Okay, hold on.
Oh,
The first reprint of the night the Transformers saved Christmas.
You got a credit in there?
The first reprint of it, the night the Transformers saved Christmas. And so finally, after all this time, Herb and I got our credits.
There you are.
Despite Tom's best efforts to stop us from getting credit. So there, Tom. I had to wait 37 years, but it was worth the wait.
And IDW owes you reprint money on that.
Yeah, you know what? If everybody who published my reprinted stories, who's not Marvel, paid me money, I'd have millions of
But
dollars.
they all owe it to you. Work for hire is a very fragile thing.
Yeah,
They may own the copyright, but they don't own the work for hire.
Well, I guess I'll get a lawyer. I mean, I'll talk to you after. Maybe have somebody to. But anyway, thanks again, and it's great being here and helping celebrate this occasion.
Well, stay on the line. We got some more people. We got chats. Milo, hey Brad, it's my birthday, and this is the best part of my birthday so far. So happy birthday, and thanks for the super chat there, Milo.
Hey,
That's
Milo.
awesome.
Happy
And
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Gregory says Tom has always given all credit to Ron on all their stories. True story. Ron, there you go. He credits you, Ron. Let's see. Adam says, my first Amazing Spider-Man comic when I was 4 was the black costume Spidey versus Puma. Thanks for helping me make me a fan for life, Tom and Ron. And we got Gregory saying again, secret about Tom, if he was in a bad mood, turning the conversation to Ron's art would distract him and put him in a better mood.
I'm feeling very used at this point, Greg. I'm feeling very used.
You feel used. Let's see. Greg also says Tom understood all of his people. Derek says Marvel wouldn't be what it is today without you, Tom. Milo is back. He says Tom DeFalco saying happy birthday to me made my life complete. Wow.
Milo.
You got to get out more.
All right, we have more friends of DeFalco. We have Mariano. What's going on, Mariano? How are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Welcome.
And good evening to you, Mr. DeFalco.
Hello, Mariano.
Tell us some good Tom stories. We're here to roast the man.
So I've got some Marvel 90s stuff, but we're actually going to jump ahead to the present. Because in the present, if you notice, if keen observers of this broadcast will look at Mr. Friends' room, in the back there on the shelf is this little goodie.
Oh, here, I'll full screen you. Hold on. There you go. The Right Project.
Available right now on Indiegogo, by the way. I had the pleasure of working with Tom and Ron on this project. And super professional guys. I work with a lot of industry professionals. I still do. Over the decades I still do. Gentlemen all, one and all. But I am here to say all this talk of Mr. DeFalco being a nice guy, not true.
Okay.
And it's not hearsay from me. You're going to hear it in his own words. But I'm going to play, hopefully this comes through on the broadcast.
Okay.
Bear with me a few seconds. We're gonna do a test one. Now, this is a professional that is worldwide, industry well-known guy. This is the kind of message I'm used to hearing. So hold on one second. Hopefully this will play.
For Tom's sake, I bet it doesn't.
I just read your book, Stanley's poem, God Woke. I don't know where the hell I've been. I never heard of this before. This is freaking incredible. It's a masterpiece. This is totally phenomenal. It's powerful, moving, everything about it. It's just incredible. I just want to let you know that. Thank you so much. Bye.
That was Greg Hildebrand. That's the kind of message I'm used to getting. The professional, complimentary, nice. We're going to play a Mr. DeFalco message. just by comparison, you know.
Okay.
Bear with me a few seconds as we get my high-tech equipment going here. All right, let's try a Mr. DeFalco message.
You should be standing by this phone 24 hours a day on the off chance I might deign to call you. I'm just shocked that you don't have that attitude. This just can't go on this way. I will speak to you some other time. Bye.
24 hours later. 24,
Yeah.
not even 24 hours later. Less than 24 hours later.
What did I say to you about waiting at the phone 24 hours a day on your This is an insult against God, man, and all that is holy and sacred. Next time this happens, not only will you be excommunicated, but we're going to bar you from New York bagels for a week.
Now, again, is this a nice guy? Is this like
Wait a
a
minute.
professional?
You're supposed to be there at my beck and call.
The Right Project on Indiegogo.
Here, hold on. Let me give you a full screen. Hold it back up. You got it. There it is, right there.
And variant covers, too. And a chrome one too.
Wow.
I kid because I love. Now, obviously, he's joking around. Obviously, he's. Let's go back to the 1990s now, because that's when I really got to know Tom. He was editor-in-chief. I actually was an art director in advertising and promotion. And I got to know all the editors because as part of that job, I had to interface with editorial, get artwork, get information about upcoming books and so on. And I got to know Tom, always professional, always helpful, always mentoring. And after a few years at Marvel, an opportunity came up where an editorial position opened up. And Tom made it possible for me to transition from being an art director in advertising and promotions to being an editor. And I also worked with these two gentlemen down here. Hi, guys. So really, a lot of what I'm experiencing now, 20 years later or whatever in the industry, is because of the opportunity that Tom gave me to break into editorial. So for that, for a lifetime, I will owe him forever. So he's a great guy. He's a mentor, and I'm enjoying every second of working with him now in the here and now.
Right.
So
Tom?
since you owe your career to me, is it too much to ask that you stand by your phone?
Notice there aren't any messages from Ron. You know why there aren't any messages from Ron? I pick up Ron's call every time.
When Ron sends a message, it's like Mission Impossible. It dissolves. Tom's just lingers on your voicemail, evidently. I love it. Any rebuttals, Tom? Anything about all that?
No, I don't want to give him an opportunity to sell again.
We've got let's see. We've got one more guest. We've got Barbara on the line. Barbara.
It's a girl. It's a girl.
Yes.
What are you doing in this industry?
Am I on?
You're on.
Here we are.
Say some good things about Tom or not.
Tom, I know we're here to honor you. 50 years in this comic industry, amazing. But now that you're an old, rich, married man, resting on your laurels, I hope you understand that I only have 10 minutes. I only have 10 minutes here, so I'm just going to go ahead and plug my autobiography, if you don't mind. Okay, here I'm going to share the screen. And this is a story. This is the comic version of my autobiography. And this is about the first time that you and I met. Okay, are you ready for this?
I don't have your screen yet, Barbara. If you want to.
I'm going to share.
Okay, well, I'll pop it up. Vinkman is in chat, says he's looking at Ron's shelf, and the right project is right over his shoulder too. Like we have product placement on this show.
Are we able to share this? Here it is. Share screen.
Yep, and share tab.
Okay, I'm going to have to get Richard to share the screen. I don't know. And here it is.
Wow.
My tech man.
It says select a window or screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll pop up on my end, and I can pop it on the screen.
Mute.
Allow.
Here. Select window.
Here we are.
Allow.
Okay. Oh, I see something. Here we go. Oh, there you are. We got it.
Now,
yep, I see it.
This is all very sketchy. And this is right after I lost my Angel Love contract. I was devastated. I made my cold calls in the morning. Comics for girls? Ha, ha, ha. Girls don't read. Oops, you were sharing. Let me get rid of this. We're in the business to make money. Hello, this is Barbara Slate. Did you almost destroy the whole comic industry with that feminist Angel Love? One brutal cold call morning. This is Barbara Slate. No! It was hard not to take that personally. On a gray day, Gary Cohn, my friend and DC creator, called. Foxy Fox, the high fashion farce. I write, you draw. We need to get this done for the Chicago Comic-Con. Gary and I created characters, Bibles, stories, and Foxy Fox was ready for the big time. The con was packed. Gary and I made the rounds, deciding which publishers were worthy to look at our masterpiece. We turned the corner when suddenly there before us was Marvel! Gary whispered, that's Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. I followed Gary's lead. Excuse us, but this is Barbara Slate and I'm Gary Cohn, and we have a project we'd like to. Tom didn't look up from portfolio reviewing. 6 o'clock at the hotel coffee shop. I could tell he was a man of few words. We were excited. If Tom likes us, we'd be doing a monthly Marvel comic, richest beyond our wildest dreams. At 6 o'clock in the hotel coffee shop, Gary and I presented Tom with Foxy Fox. Tom glanced. 15 seconds later, he handed it back and said, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Then Tom got up. That's it? Meeting over? I knew that Tom was a man of few words, but those were way too few. I hollered out, hey, Tom, is Marvel ever going to do a girl's line? I'm thinking about it. Call me in the city. I called Tom. Tom asked, what have you got? Femme fatale, lover, stalker, healer, killer. I showed Tom the Femme fatale Bible, stories, plotline. I knew she was perfect for Marvel. But the man of few words appeared to have the same enthusiasm for femme fatale as he did for Foxy Fox. Well, thank you for seeing me. And when I was practically out the door, he yelled, "If you got anything else, I'll take a look." I was encouraged and knew exactly what to do. "Trina, Marvel is thinking about a girls' line. Let's collaborate." Ha, ha, girls' line at that old boys' club. They're too busy drawing women with gigantic breasts to even know what a real girl looks like. Sigh, let's do it. Trina Robbins and I worked up a proposal called Sunny and Dawn. We talked for hours, sent scripts back and forth, and wrote stories for the first 3 comics. The day of the pitch, I felt confident. How could he refuse? In the 80s, Trina and I were the top 2 women creators for girls in mainstream comics. Actually, we were the only ones, but that's not the point. But when I showed Tom Sunny and Dawn, the man of few words puffed on his cigar and said, "If you got anything else, I'll take a look." I couldn't contain myself. I get it. There is no girls' line. Actually, I was thinking of a 48-page black and white comic for the 21 and over woman about life in the city. Would you be interested in writing and drawing it? To be continued.
I love it.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay, here I can take it out.
Okay,
Here you go.
I'm back. So that
Awesome.
book became a 3-part graphic novel, Yuppies from Hell.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to get a little mushy now. I adore you. You have been my greatest supporter. I don't know what I would have done without you, really. And thank you for being my editor-in-chief for 5 years, publishing over 100 of my comics, and best of all, being my friend for 35 years. I adore you. So thank you. Thank you for that.
That's awesome.
And why don't you tell these guys what you often called me?
I called you the idiot. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh.
You were so easy.
It sounds like it was a loving term, Barbara.
It was. I was, it was so, I just felt so lucky to be more. I mean, look, at that time, there were really no girls working for Marvel. You can see, I think, how many women have we had tonight? 10, 11? How many?
After Hildy, you're it.
Wait a minute.
Where's Hildy?
This Hildy. In the editorial department, we had more women working it during my time than at any other time.
It's true.
And we had women writers and artists. We had plenty of women working. They were doing this, the superhero stuff.
Well, Tom, do you want to tell the story about Barbie when I stopped you in the hall to show you my Barbie comic? The story about Barbie talking to poor Skipper who had a dream and telling about this beautiful dream that's. Do you remember this story?
Is this with the ad?
Yes.
And Barbara, I have a bunch of your Barbie comics up here that you wrote.
Oh,
There you go.
wonderful.
It's from your website. So yeah.
Thank you. Continue on with my website, if you will.
Oh yeah.
And my wife Hildy was the editor of Barbie.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And she was not my
1992
wife
and
at the
93
time.
Parents' Choice Award,
Yeah,
Barbie.
at the time.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So tell the story, Tom. Okay.
So Barbara is showing me this sweet little Barbie story, and she says, and she has this beautiful dream, and she turns the page, and there was an ad for some hideous video game with some movie monster on
A huge rat.
Oh, really? It was a gross, disgusting image that I didn't even want in the regular comic. But I flipped it and I saw this thing, and I just, I behaved badly. I looked at it, and I punched it in my hand, and I went storming up in a very nice and polite way to have a little discussion with our ad sales people. That discussion went very nicely because I basically said we should not have these sort of ads in our children's comics.
Yeah.
And I might have been a little loud.
I heard you, but that appeared at the perfect time when Barbie was saying to Skipper, "Here is the beautiful dream," and you turn the page, and there it is. It was.
Do you remember what they were selling? What was the
It was
selling?
placed perfectly. Yeah.
It was some sort of video game.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
And after that, the sales department started separating the children's comics from the Marvel comics. So we never ran into that problem again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And the salesperson's hearing did recover at a certain point.
Right. Well, we have more guests for Tom. We have, and Barbara, everybody stay on the line. I can have 10 cameras on at once. So once we hit 10, I got to start taking some people.
Oh, okay. But if I have to run out, I have to see if Serena's winning.
Okay. Our next guest for Tom is Pat Olliffe. What's going on, Pat? How are you, sir?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
Tom, what the hell are you doing here? Oh, that's right. I forgot. Oh, that's right.
What have you done for me lately?
Yes, exactly. That's the standard greeting.
Yes.
The next.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. So we're sharing funny Tom stories. Do you have any?
Well, it's funny he mentions that. What have you done for me lately? Because I was thinking about it earlier today. That there's a little anecdote, little story that I don't think I ever told Tom or even Ron. And it was not long after I'd started at Marvel. I got a chance to go out to the Chicago convention. And I remember standing in line at the hotel checking in, and there was a couple of Marvel guys also checking in. It was an assistant editor was in line with me. And I can't remember his name right now, but he was asking me what I was working on. It was after Thor.
You're breaking up, Pat. It was after you were working on Thor, I think I heard. We might.
It's frozen?
Nope, his audio's just gone.
His audio's gone?
Yeah, I can't. Can you guys hear him? I can't hear him.
No, can't.
No.
Okay. Maybe Pat. Maybe come out and come back in. That might help it. There we go.
Draw pictures.
Is this a commercial break? Are we
okay? Hold on. There.
All right.
There you go. No, hold it up. Wait until I full screen you, Mariano.
All right. Here we go.
There you go, man. Pick that
Ron
up.
Ron drew that.
Yeah.
Where can we pick that up, by the way?
Indiegogo.
You got only in Indiegogo.
Only on Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. All right.
For now.
Yeah.
Anybody have another funny Tom story while we get Pat back? Oh, speak of the devil. Here it comes. You're back,
I
sir.
returned.
Yes. Yay.
Okay.
Welcome.
So, when last we left our story, I was talking to an assistant editor about working with Tom, and he kind of flinched for a second, and he said he loved working with Tom, but he said Tom was scary, and I had no idea what he was talking about. It was early in my career. I said I haven't experienced that. I don't know what he's talking about. So, but it was in the back of my head, so that I remember in subsequent conversations, Tom would say in his New York accent, "Hey, Mr. Pat, what have you done for me lately?" But that story of scary Tom was in the back of my head. So he would say, "Mr. Pat, what have you done for me lately?" And my reaction was, "What? Why? Am I supposed to? Why are you asking?" So, obviously that wasn't my experience moving forward. It was great working with him. The only other story that I remembered about working with Tom was the craziness of our time on Spider-Girl, where it seemed like every 10 minutes we were about to get canceled. So after a handful of issues, when this was going to be it, and there was a Spider-Girl world and the end for now, and Tom and I would congratulate each other on a run, and we did a good job, and then we get a call, no, you're still going. And we go, and we go a little bit further. It was amazing that the character ran for 10 years, but there were so many gear shifts along the.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we lost him again.
Yep, he's still there.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything.
And we lost him again.
We lost him again.
But here I've got. We showed it a little earlier. The beautiful art by Ron and Pat on the first 100 issues of Spider-Girl. You can see his art right there. Just beautiful stuff between you guys. Just
Wow.
Pat did
love
a
it.
fabulous job.
Wonderful.
If you go back and look, every issue that ends on a full pager, we thought that was going to be the last issue.
Oh.
Wow.
And is that right? Why you always wrote the end for now? Is that what you?
Yeah, because we never knew.
You never knew. Oh, there's Pat. He's back.
Hello.
You're
Hello?
back. We can hear you. We can hear you.
No.
Yeah, they kept telling us it was going to be the last issue because the sales department would always predict, according to the direct market, sales would go down, but we never went down. So
yeah,
they'd come to the issue. They'd look at the numbers and they'd say, "You actually went up."
Yeah.
And here's something that Pat and I and Ron were all very proud of. At one point, they released digest books.
Yep.
For a while there, we were Marvel's best-selling trade paperbacks.
Woo-hoo.
We were selling anywhere between 100 and 120,000 copies.
Didn't they put those in like book fairs too, like Scholastic and stuff?
They were all over the place.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
It was actually doing its job as an outreach comic to general audiences, and so naturally it couldn't last.
Yeah.
What did you end up doing?
What?
How many did you end up doing?
Yeah, I think they did 4 or 5.
I was a few more than that, but it went away because of shenanigans from Scholastic. So.
Yes, Scholastic decided that they wanted a discount that was just too ridiculous
Crazy.
for
Yeah.
anybody.
Our friend Kelly from the show says they were in book fairs too. So
Yeah, they were
do you
in
remember
book
seeing
fairs.
them in book fairs? So, well, that was great to have Pat on. We have another guest, a friend of DeFalco. We have Danny Fingeroth in the house. What's going on, Danny? How are you, sir?
Hey.
Oh my God! Hello.
Hey.
Hi. Wow, my hair is how the hell did I put the wrong toupee on? I think.
So tell us some fun Tom stories. Feel free to roast the man.
Well, I thought I would totally impromptu, off the cuff, do a top 10 list.
Oh my!
Top 10 DeFalco memories, quotes, or pizza toppings. And as you guys all know, but maybe the audience doesn't, over the years, the DeFalco impression turned into Yogi Bear. I'm not quite sure the evolution, but basically when anybody in the office would do an impression of Tom, so I'm not sure if I'm going to lapse into that in any of these quotes, because they do range from the sublime to the ridiculous and beyond. But
right.
Number 10, Tom DeFalco memory quote or pizza topping. On hearing of our plans for the Clone Saga, some of you might have heard, to replace Peter with Ben, Tom observed, that didn't mean that Mary Jane's been intimate with a clone all these years. Did not use the phrase intimate with.
That's awesome.
As Mr. DeMatteis noted, the next day Tom had signed on as one of the writers of the Clone Saga. When asked by me why Spider-Man does what he does, because Peter sometimes says it's to earn money for his family or to have fun or to stick it to Jonah Jameson, or because with great power there must also come great responsibility. I asked Tom, well, which is it? And Tom said, Peter doesn't have a clue. Sometimes he thinks it's one reason, sometimes another. That's what makes him just like a real person. Why he's such a great character, which was one of my, that was such a great insight into Peter Parker and Spider-Man. This next one is a very inside baseball quote. Some of you will know the reference. I will not explain, but it's, "What's playing at the drive-in?" Yeah.
I don't know.
You gotta give some context to that.
Okay,
It's
well,
funny, actually.
Top Gun. I mean,
I'll finish the list and we can get back. Top 10 pizza topping would be a baby seal pepperoni.
What's the score?
Top 10 Tom DeFalco memory quote, a pizza topping. Tom referred to me in a Ray's review as an editorial pit bull, which was a nice way of saying I was a big pain in the ass. So I appreciated Tom's tact. Here's one of the more famous Tom quotes. "Yeah, his cat fair to DC." After I left Marvel, I went to run a line of digital comics for Byron Price, the late Byron Price. And when I needed advice, Tom, having no life, was always available on Friday. Listen to me complain about what was going on and ask for advice and what he thought of stuff. And that was really important, Tom. To get serious for a moment, true, you had no life, but the fact that you were available to take my calls and really, working for a small company like Byron Price was a whole different ballgame than working at Marvel, with its own unique set of challenges and problems. So I thank you for that. The top 10 Tom DeFalco memory quote, a pizza topping, number 3. Tom was the one who figured out that mutants had the sign of the M, which was genius on their palm, which is genius because I actually needed him to point this out to me. Everybody has the sign of the M.
I remember doing that as a kid. Wasn't it in Firestar that you wrote that or something?
Yeah.
I remember that. I'm like, I'm a mutant. I was like 7. You traumatized me, Tom. I thought I was a mutant.
Number 2, top 10 Tom DeFalco memory quote or pizza topping, the crushed dreams of freelancers. And the number 1 Tom DeFalco memory quote or pizza topping, an indictment is not a conviction.
I've never actually been convicted. People often confuse indictments with convictions. Never actually convicted.
So that, Tom, just to add on, to pile on, working with you as either an editor working for you or you as a freelancer working for me or just as somebody who I could call and annoy with various questions or just hanging out in the many years since. It's been
Barbara's getting score updates as we speak.
4-1 Serena.
I have never done.
Guys, I love you guys, but I'm going to go. But I do want to hear about that drive-in. Okay. Goodbye. I love you, Tom. Congratulations.
Bye,
Thank
Barbara.
you.
I don't think I've ever done a Zoom event or a StreamYard event without something like that. Without the most serious academic college professor in the world having like his kids barge in and jump on. Anyway, thank you, Tom, and congratulations. 50 years, and I'd say the vast majority of them have been good years. So that's so congratulations on that. It's just an honor to know you and work with you, and I'm gonna cry. But,
and thank you for having the faith to put me on Spider-Man when I had no faith in myself.
You are, as I've, maybe one of the top 3 people and not all of them are alive who understand that character and really get what makes Spider-Man so popular and so beloved. You know? So you really, you taught me so much about that character, and and it shows. It, and I just, somebody was making fun of somebody for redrawing stuff before, but I would just like to make fun of Tom, because I would get a script from Tom or a plot, and I'd say, this is great, and then the next day he'd come in and I rewrote it, but I accept it's already. Yeah, but it could be better, and certainly at a, the computer, was actually kind of enabled Tom to hide this admirable trait, because I would get scripts from him that were like sculptures because they have the whiteout and they be written over. And it was after I'd already accepted it and told him, no, it could be better. I'm gonna use like an entire closet full of this whiteout, and it did make it better, but
you can always make it better.
That's why we have deadlines.
Yeah.
Tom, any fun stories about Danny?
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
I always remember when he came in and said to me that Roger Stern was going to leave Amazing. And I said, boy, do you have a problem, because only an idiot's going to follow Roger on the book. And he said, yeah, I'm going to need a new writer. And at the time, I was the executive editor, and part of my job was to keep track of our freelancers. So I pulled the list of writers, and I was flipping through the list of writers, throwing out names to Danny about guys that I thought could do a good job on Spider-Man. And at some point, I look up, and I realize he's just staring at me with this goofy smile on his face. And I said to him, why aren't you writing these names down? And he says, because I already know who I want to ask. And I said, well, if you know who you want to ask, why are you wasting my time? and that's when he told me that he wanted me to do it.
And then I think I was the one who put you and Ron. I mean, you and Ron knew each other, but I put you together as a writer and artist team.
Yeah, Ron was the fill-in artist on Amazing then, because JR was off for a couple of months, and I thought for sure I was the fill-in writer, because, as I told you, I said I don't think I can do Spider-Man's dialogue.
Well, your first two scripts were over Roger's plots too.
My first two scripts were over Roger's plots.
Yeah.
And
Well,
But
Danny, go
Danny
ahead, Ron.
learned the lesson of everything can be better pretty quickly. Because I can remember a time before cell phones where Danny was going on vacation. And he literally called me like 3 times from payphones along the route to his vacation to make notes about a plot. And Danny, I'm not going to get to that part of the story until way past Monday. So go enjoy your weekend, for God's sake.
I was on the cutting edge, because I did that then. But a couple of years later, everybody was doing that.
Yeah,
that seemed to be. But the story about what's at the drive-in. I think Bob and Carl were there, and Tom. It was the year that Shooter took all the editors out to the San Diego con. And, we had quote unquote free time, although it was kind of not really free. It was all structured. It was structured fun. And I guess we were all trying to figure out where to have dinner and then what to do. And Tom came in a little late after the discussion had been underway. And Jim said to Tom, you want to go have dinner at the best Italian restaurant in San Diego with me and Vinny? Or do you want to go to the drive-in with the rest of the guys who are idiots and don't appreciate fine dining? And Tom said, What's playing at the drive-in?
I wanted to make an informed choice.
Hey, Danny, talk a bit about what made Tom and Ron your team. Why'd you pick them? Why'd you hire them to do amazing?
Well, I worked with Ron on Khazar, and boy, this goes back. I knew Tom had been the editor of Spider-Man before I was.
Yep.
Then he went on to be executive editor. Ron, this was the day, children. When before email, before texting, before all that stuff, where you actually had to call a freelancer and have a talk with them, or God forbid, have a talk like with their wife or their children. You actually developed a relationship, and Ron and I think got along well, and I loved his drawing, and I'm not sure how. Now here's where the timeline gets all. We had a Khazar story, the famous Khazar with the magic bullet in his head, I think maybe Brent left that for us to figure out. Brent went off the book. You came on, but somehow, probably trying to sell Khazar comics, we put Spider-Man for a few issues as a guest star. So I knew you could draw the hell out of Spidey.
Well, that got me a gig with DeFalco as editor on Team Up.
That's it. Okay. All right. So you had a relationship with Tom. You had a relationship with Spider-Man. You drew great and you drew fast. You had, and your personality was tolerable. So all those things.
Tolerable. That's a
That's
compliment.
what
I
I've
think.
always said about Ron. He's tolerable.
Tolerable. That's like a passing Yelp review. Ron Friend's tolerable.
It was actually on my resume.
Yes.
Tolerable Ron Friend.
I don't know, it just seemed like a natural. And you're right, at the beginning, I think we were waiting because JR was going to do the X-Men and then come back to Spider, which of course, that did not happen, and that was fine because I had Ron in place and I had Joe Rubenstein inking it, which was incredible, an incredible combination. So that just
you actually at one point, Danny, told me the story about JR coming into the office and you asking him how it was going on X-Men and whether he was when he was planning on coming back and everything, and that he said, well, you seem to be happy with the guys you have, and you said, yeah, I think they're gelling, I think it's going pretty well, and that JR kind of gave you the nod that he wasn't going to come back. And you had told me that story. So the first time I met JR, I thanked him for my run on Spider-Man. Because if he would have wanted to come back in, you would have honored the original agreement, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, that's a what if. That's an alternate timeline.
Of course, my big beef with you, Danny, is that you left that position open for somebody else to come in. And that kind of affected my life, too, professionally.
And mine too, but we're not here to talk about that.
Hornacek says, Ron, tolerable friends in chat. So I think it's sticking. The internet is picking up on it, Ron.
There you go.
I think it's time to bring in another friend. We have Mr. Howard Mackie in the house. What's going on, Howard?
Oh, I cannot believe I'm wasting the end of my vacation on this. and I have to look at all you boneheads.
You don't have to waste any time with us at all, Howard. Goodbye.
Well, I'd much rather be looking at Hildy than any of the rest of you. Hi, Hildy.
You spent the whole night to arrange your film noir lighting there.
Yeah, I'm literally on vacation on a porch with a light with moths buzzing around me. So sorry.
You got the Hollywood 1-point lighting.
There you go. It's actually been great listening to everybody tell stories because every single person has inspired another story for me to recount. Many of them good-ish. But I was fortunately Danny saved the day a little bit in that I was disappointed that nobody really did the full-throated Tom DeFalco impression, which when I was on staff working for Tom was a requirement. We all had to do it. And certainly in Mark's office, the thing of it is I had to learn how to talk like Tom. And so whenever I tell a Tom story, I absolutely must slip into the voice. But honestly, Tom, I started out when he was the executive editor and I worked as Mark's assistant. When I got promoted, I was working directly under Tom. I was the managing editor. And then very shortly thereafter, I was going to be promoted to full editor of a certain line of comics that were new. It was kind of a universally new line of comics. And given that the previous two editors had gotten fired, the first thing I did was go into Tom and say, Tom, can you do anything about this? And so that I can't get promoted. And Tom, in his very wise and sage way of speaking to you, says, well, the thing of it is, Mr. Howard, if you turn down the promotion, you're screwed. And if you take the promotion, you're screwed. So have a nice day. So that was one of my earlier direct experiences with Tom, where he was giving me sage advice.
Screwed. That's advice.
Yes. But I did last, and then got to be a full editor working under Tom. And we were talking about practical jokes. I think Carl started practical jokes. And I remember one day I was one of a handful of oddball people at Marvel Editorial who showed up not only on time, but early. Carl was one of them. Carl was always there. And so I remember coming into Tom's office, and it was me, Carl, and Mark. And we were just like having a cup of coffee and talking about stuff. And Tom said, yeah, what do I do to get these guys to come in on time? And I think it was Mark who came up with the idea of writing a memo. And you had your secretary write the memo to the entire editorial staff, said that Jim Galton was called a sudden meeting. Everybody had to be there. It was absolutely required for everybody to be in your office to meet with Galton at 9:30, which nobody was going to be there at 9:30. And you signed it. We made copies, put it under everybody's door, and then we all went back to your office and sat there waiting for the panicked people coming in. And of course, I think it was like 3:00 when Ralph eventually showed up. So that was the flavor, as Carl said, the flavor of the environment that Tom not only tolerated but encouraged at that time.
That's awesome.
And so let's see. Do I have any roasting stories of Tom?
Yeah, get them.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. But if I were going to, I would say early on, you asked what it was like to work for Tom. Have you seen The Sopranos?
Is he Tony?
They were a bunch of wimps to Tom. I remember, again, I was editing the New Universe, and we had I think it was the War. It was a graphic novel that had to go out, and it was running late because our dear friend Mark Grunwald had decided it needed a bunch of rewriting. So I was sitting at my desk. It was middle of summer. I had the window open to get a little bit of a breeze. And literally, I was putting the page numbers down on the book. And Tom comes into my office during lunch. Tom comes into my office and says, Mr. Howard, can I take a look at one of these pages? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Mr. Howard, do you have any salt? And I said, Tom, I'm trying to get this book out. Yeah, do you have any salt? So I opened my desk drawer and I had a little packet of salt from lunches that we would, order. And he takes a page out from in front of me, opens up the salt packet, and pours it all over the page. He said, because I figured given how late it is, we might as well eat it for all the going to do. And anybody who knows me knows I have no temper at all. Okay. I stood up and I had the entire book in my hand. It was a 48-page book. So I had 48 pages of original artwork in my hand. And I looked at Tom and I looked behind me and there's an open window. And then I look at Tom and I look back at the open window, and fortunately, David Lowell, who was my assistant at the time, comes across the room and literally, just yanks the book out of my head. Howard, I have to make photocopies of this before we send it out. And then Tom and I exchanged very polite words after that.
I like that. We might as well eat it. That's pretty good, Tom.
Yeah. Well, and obviously it needed a little salt.
Listen, otherwise it would be too dry for you.
Yeah. But then, DeMatteis, DeMatteis. I realized Mark says his name differently than I learned to say it in Stanley's Soapbox when I was a younger reader. But when Mark was talking about the Clone Saga meeting, and Danny alluded to it as well, I remember, and this is Tom, we all knew Tom would always go to bat for us, no matter what, whether it was, as you guys were talking about him being the human shield for the guys upstairs or just in life. He was really always there to protect us. And I remember we were at one of those meetings talking about the Clone Saga. And it might have been even later on when we got into some of the Aunt May stuff, and DeMatteis and I were pitching the story together. Mark was narrating it. I believe I was acting out the death of Aunt May on top of the conference table. And we got raucous. We were very loud. And all of a sudden, the knock comes to the door, and it's somebody from the hotel. And they were explaining that there were other people in the room next door to us who were complaining that we were too loud. And Tom, and I remember this very clearly, Tom said, well, the thing of it is, if my guys are this excited about a story, I'm not shutting them up. So you have, as I see it, you have one of two options. You can either move us or you can move them. And I'm assuming they moved them because we stayed where we were.
I don't think the line to the hotel was, I'm acting out the part of an 80-year-old woman on her deathbed would go over as well as what Tom did.
I'm closer to that now than I was then. I can certainly,
yeah.
Well, Tom, he's hit you with a bunch. You got any rebuttals to Howard here? Or you just gonna eat it, Tom? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean,
but on the positive note for me personally, my writing career really is because of Tom. Because my big break in comics was when I got to take over Ghost Rider. And
I love that first issue. That was so good.
Ooh, thank you. But they asked me to do a pitch. It got approved. What I didn't realize was that they had asked 5 other people to do pitches, all of whom were much more experienced and more talented than me. But for whatever reason, they liked mine. But then every step of the way, and you told me some of this stuff more recently than back in the day, the sales and marketing people tried to shoot it down.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted it dead. I was an untried writer. I was working with an untried art team, and they absolutely did not want this series to go forward. And it was only after a lot of back and forth, I would say months, right, Tom? Back and forth, that Tom just said, screw it. We're doing it the way I want to do it. And that's how Ghost Rider took off. And because Ghost Rider took off and it was relatively successful at the time, it allowed me to then go off and do other stuff.
Howard,
including...
you got some Ghost Rider fans in chat. We got Adam says, love me some 90s Ghost Rider. Danny Ketch for life. Milo, it's Milo's birthday, by the way, and he loves your Ghost Rider.
Well, happy birthday, Milo. Well, and having said that, given that I realize now, based on Mariano and Barbara, since we're promoting stuff, I just was approached by Marvel to do a 5-issue Ghost Rider mini series using my Danny Ketch. So
there you go, nice. We have Radio of Horror says Howard's Ghost Rider was what made me get into the character and become a writer myself. So you're selling Harleys, evidently.
There you go.
Howard, have you ever ridden a motorcycle?
I have never ridden a motorcycle in my life. I have been driven. I have ridden as a passenger on a motorcycle.
Close enough.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
But I have set my head on fire, so you know.
I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it at the time, Tom, but that the Ghost Rider was having that kind of issue early on. But that would I would assume that's why you decided to have him guest star in Thor as a sign of solidarity and to get the character out there.
Yeah,
that was one of the reasons. Yeah, the direct sales department kept saying this book is never going to sell. It's never going to sell. They turned in a projection on how much money we were going to lose on this. Jim Goldman at one point came down and said, "Are you sure you want to do this book? Because sales department says there's no way they can sell it." And I said, "Jim, trust me, this book is going to work." And he said, "Well, you're my editor in chief until you're not." And then I walked out. And I remember when the first issue was done, I walked into the head of our direct sales department, Carol Kalish, and I gave her the book. And I said, "This is the book we want to do." Mm-hmm. And I handed her the book. And I, sat in the office. About a half hour later, she came in. And she came in with her original projections on how we were going to lose money on this book. And she put the book on top of my desk, and then she ripped up her thing, dropped it in my wastebasket, and said, "Never mind," and walked out. And after that, she pushed Ghost Rider like crazy.
Yeah.
And it actually did sell a few copies.
It did. It did.
Yeah. We earlier in the broadcast, Milo was wished a happy birthday by Tom. Now Milo says, "Howard Mackie is saying happy birthday to me. My life has now exceeded expectations." Ron, what did you say to Milo? You need to get out more? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Milo, you really need
Tom
to get
did.
out more.
I agree, but Ron agrees. But happy birthday.
Yeah, I've met me and I remain unimpressed.
Mr. Comics
As
says,
do the rest of us.
Thank you,
I
Tom.
want to say thank you to each of you for everything you've done, bringing our comic book characters to life. So Mr. Comics says that. Adam says Carol Kalish knew what was up. Steve Gretz says that Thor Ghost Rider issue is one of my very first comics ever. So there you go. We have another guest. Oh,
I
go
do
ahead.
have a Howard story.
Oh, yes. I want to hear a Howard story.
Well,
Okay.
I'm taking a drink.
He is on vacation.
All right. So I'm, sitting in my home office one day, and I get a call from Ralph Macchio. And Ralph says to me, "Oh, I understand you and Howard have a new project coming out." And I said, yeah, we're working on something. I had no idea what Ralph was talking about. He says, I'm glad it looks kind of interesting. I said, good. And he said, you want to discuss it at all? I said, no. I think Howard understands the presentation. I think you should discuss it with him. And Ralph says, and I have to say, I'm very surprised that you guys you want to go back to the Clone Saga. And my reaction was, the Clone Saga? I had a hunch you had no idea what I'm talking about. Let me call Howard and find out what's going on. And then found out that Howard had put in a proposal for that 6-issue limited series called The Original Clone Saga.
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah. And it attached me to it without.
There was just one small piece of the process was missing, Tom.
Yeah. And I thought, oh, okay. But that's how I got involved in that particular project.
Just one more positive thing I'd like to say, and it was, I don't remember who said this earlier. I don't know if it was Bob or Carl, where when I was on editorial, it was what Tom created for us as editor-in-chief was a safe space. And even though it was like going to Tony Soprano, so you could wind up in the river. But like if you were having difficulty with whatever, whether it was story points in a book or with a creator, writer, artist, whatever, you could go to Tom. His door was always open, and he would sit down there. You'd sit down in his office, and you just talk things through. And if it was story, I mean, Tom, and I've said this, you and others have said this today, you are by far and away one of the best story guys in the business. And you're able to look at something and move the pieces around when it gets jammed up and make it work. Not just on your own work, which I've now heard from both Danny and Ron, but on other people's work. And that was, as an editor, that was a great thing to know, that you had somebody that you didn't have to be afraid of to go in and talk to about this stuff. So for that, I thank you. See, I ended on a positive.
Hey, we have someone that likes you, Howard. Steve says he met you in person at Terrificon, and you're one of the nicest comic pros he's ever met. Thanks for the great experience.
That's damning with faint praise, isn't
it? Bob and I were there too, but we don't merit.
No.
Yes, Steve,
you know what? I've met both of you, and I agree with him.
And Gregory says that Tom always backed us up as editors. It made us feel secure.
Absolutely.
All right, we have another guest to add to the roast. We have Scott Lobdell. There he is. Scott, what's going on?
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you? I like your Scarlet Witch behind you. That looks nice.
Oh, I was wondering where I put that. Thank you for having me. I didn't realize this was sponsored by the medical alert button. When did that happen? So, this is exciting. Howard, I do not mean to step on your announcement, but Marvel called me last week as well, and they said the restraining order is still in effect. And that I have to stay 200 yards away from the office. So that's my big announcement. Tom, I'm quite shocked to hear all these wonderful things that are being said about you.
As well you should be.
I was at Marvel for, I don't know, 6 years while you were there. And I can't remember you ever speaking to me once. 6 years, which I'm very grateful for. No, I'm just kidding. Tom is like one of the nicest guys in the world. It's like, I mean, seriously, Tom, I think of you as like a brother often, and like an older brother, like a father, like a brother who's a father, sort of.
The better looking brother.
Yeah, well, a grandfatherly father. Like say if Grandfather Time was a person, that's who I think of when I think of you. You're like a really distinguished Sleestack. I knew I could work Sleestack into this. I will tell a story. When I was breaking in, all you guys remember that I was. You probably remember it took me about 6 years to break in, and you guys all used to sadistically send out these preformed rejection letters, and I had so many rejection letters. God's honest truth. You're like, of course you did. But it was like my entire bedroom wall was lined with rejection letters from Marvel and one from DC. And I remember I got one and I opened it up and it was another form letter. Sorry, at this time, we don't think you're ready, blah, blah. And at the very end, it said, it was signed by Tom D with a stamp. And at the very end, it said, P.S., this one wasn't as bad as the last one. And I was like, oh my God. So I showed everybody, I showed my family, I showed I showed everybody that would look. And my brother finally pulled me aside. He goes, Scott, that's a rejection letter. Like, you shouldn't show people that. I said, no, but he took the time to write something on it. And that was as much fatherly advice I got from everybody else raves about you, but I that was it. No, there was one time I remember we were in the hallway and I showed you something and you told me that I should go home and bury myself in my work, which is somebody said that earlier. Who said that? Yeah. But then a week later I bought it in. I was so proud and I bought it in and you read it and you said, just bury yourself. Okay, that wasn't true, and screw you all for laughing. Okay. Tom,
I was disappointed you didn't take the advice.
Tom and I didn't work together at Marvel, but 15 years later, we worked together at DC because they had just started the New 52, and I was writing 3 books, and Bobby Chase said, listen, Scott, 3 books is too much for you. We got to have, we're going to give Superboy to someone else. So I was like, what about Tom DeFalco? And they were like, the name. I said, Tom DeFalco used to edit Marvel comics in the 90s. And they're like, no, doesn't ring a bell. But I stood up for him, and every day I told them that they should hire Tom DeFalco, and eventually they did, and we started working together. And what was really fun, the funnest part about working together, I don't know, how long was it, Tom, like 6 months or something?
No, it was like a year, like 2 years.
It felt like 40, 50 years, right?
So what happened was we would call each other up, and once in a great while in the business, you get something that's really crazy that happens. And you call, one of your freelancer friends, you go, you're not going to believe what happened today. And Tom and I did that about 4 times a day or the entire time we were both working at DC. And then finally when he left DC and he left Superboy, and I called him up and I felt bad and I said, what do you, how do you feel about leaving? And he was like, every day I wake up, I'm a new man. He couldn't have been happier. And it took me like another 8 years before I left, but I was like, oh, now I get it. I wanted to say
Scott, you've gone more for the Rodney Dangerfield version of Tom and the Yogi Bear. I can see that.
Danny.
Appropriate, yeah.
Danny.
Yeah.
You haven't seen anything yet. Okay. I have a special.
I'm grateful.
I have a special guest who's sent me a video, and so I want to play it for you. And he goes. It goes without saying who he is. Very hard to reach, but I told him you were having a thing, and I tracked him down, and he said, "I can't come there, but I'm going to send a video." So,
all right, you ready for the video?
Yes, but before we go, I just want to say, Tom, wherever you go, and whatever you do, keep kissing that evil way.
All right, here we go. I'm going to play it.
Too late.
I've got it right here. Here we go.
When I heard they were roasting terrific Tom DeFalco, I was furious. I've been waiting outside the pearly gates to greet him. How did they send him down there without me noticing? I already talked to God about letting him up here as a personal favor to me. I said, Stan, Tom DeFalco might not be the most handsome guy around, or the smartest, or the funniest, but he is a guy. And no one can take that away from him, except Hildy. No judgments, kids. But face front offending. Enough said. Speaking of Hildy, did it ever occur to you that the residuals for Speedball were not going to last forever? Oh, and Ron Prenz is here. Ron Prenz, people don't realize, was one of the original artists on the cave walls where they found hieroglyphics, which was pretty impressive when you consider they didn't even have light boxes back then. But more about the man of the hour. Tom DeFalco is a good man. Verily, he is a great man, from what I hear from Tom. Little known fact, before I nicknamed him Tornado Tom, I tried Tetanus Tom, Tommy Two Thumbs, and Tom DeFlatulence. A lot of people don't know that Tom has written more best-selling comic books than any modern-day writer in the history of the industry. Come on, give it up for him. And he did it all under the pen name of Chris Claremont. Oh, wait. I mean, as editor-in-chief, he released more of his trade collections of his own work than anyone who ever ran a comic book company. I'm serious. There are still warehouses filled with kickers and trades. But he was nothing if not fair. He also released Absolute Carnage. Not a trade, just his reign as editor-in-chief. To give you an idea how invaluable he was, from the Latin word not valuable at all, when he left Marvel, they had to hire 5 editor-in-chiefs to take his place. And that was just to maintain his corporate expense account. Tom was quite a creator in his day. He created Thunderstrike, Fantastic Force, Spider-Girl. Seriously, where did that guy get his ideas from? Oh, wait. I know. I'm surprised you never gave Captain America Jarvis Parker Lumpkin his own series, you bloated hack. Yeah, he did some of my best work. He and Ron were like a Stan and Jack cover band. They were the Beatlemania to our White Album. They were like a Xerox machine that printed royalty checks. Even the distinguished competition knew what they had when he worked there. They hired him in editorial. He told me it was the longest afternoon of his life. I joke about Tom because I love the guy. I always have. I always liked him best when he wasn't borrowing money, but better than borrowing every original idea I ever had. Tom, I love you. I'll see you soon. but not too soon, kid.
Wow. All right.
Was that crazy? I'm so glad I was able to get him to send me that.
Yeah.
It sounded so much better live.
Well done, sir. Very
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Wow. Any rebuttal, Tom or Ron or anyone? You left him speechless. Howard's got something.
At long last.
Every once in a while, Tom would come to editorial offices and would just show up in the door and say, "Stan's in the office today, and he wants to take a bunch of you boneheads out to lunch. So be ready at 12:30." And we would go to lunch, and I don't think I ever heard Stan call Tom Tom. He would call him Tony, which I thought was a much. I started calling him Tony for a while because I think it fits.
The first 6 times I met Stan, he made it a point to tell me I was his favorite artist at Marvel. And every time I was very touched.
Oh my gosh. All right. Tom, if you don't have anything else for Scott, we're going to bring another guest in.
Well, I just want to thank Scott because a couple of months ago I went through a situation and Scott was there for me, and I really, all of you guys were, but Scott was checking in with me almost every day, and I really do appreciate.
Was this the bail thing or the other thing?
And this is before the restraining order, right?
Yeah, because that PayPal.
And an indictment is not a conviction.
We have one more guest on the line for Tom. We have Mike Pellerito, the editor-in-chief of Archie Comics, right?
Hey.
What's up, Mike? How are you?
Wow, I don't know how I follow all that. That was pretty amazing. I do want to say the most important takeaway from tonight is it's really just happy birthday to Milo. He's the real star here. That kid is dynamite, and if we can continue to roast the Milo, I'm all for it. Tom is too nice and too good at what he does. This Milo kid, though, that's potential. I'm happy about that.
I happen to know that Milo goes on every podcast and says it's his birthday.
That's the best gimmick ever. I hope it's true.
Well, Milo's still with us. He says you're hilarious, Mike.
I hope he shows up at restaurants, tries to get the free dessert. Like, I hope this kid rocks it. He's laughing. Look at you, comic book suckers. I got happy birthday out of everybody. I'm going out to Applebee's and getting a cheesecake or something. So, Tom, you've been moonlighting for Marvel all these years? I thought you just kind of fell off the face of the map when you left Archie. What happened there? So, by the way, that first Archie story, the what was it? The dumbbell?
Oh, yeah. Delivery dumbbell.
Who approved the cake?
Who approved the cake?
Did you see? There's a very awkward.
I get you. Hold on here. I can share the image of the cake. Hold on. Delivery dumbbell. Let's take a look at this cake you're talking about. There you go. Oh my God! Look at that cake.
There's a big popper there that I don't know how it got past the Comic Code Authority, and I retroactively can't unapprove this. But if you try to scrap at any of the news stories, Tom, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. Also, I think this is the cake we should give this kid Milo anytime he shows up.
The dialogue is interesting too.
Careful with that cake, Archie. It's a surprise for my father's birthday. How do I get involved with these things? The cake's so big it can't even fit in a box.
There's too much double entendre for a box.
This is actually the Bible version of the story.
Tom, that was your first story?
That was my first 5-page story.
Wow.
At Archie, in those days, you had to do a bunch of 1-page gags first, and it just took me a while to convince Richard that I was good enough to do a 5-page story.
Hey, Mike, a young Tom comes in your office. Does that get approved? Does he get hired? Does he have a 50th anniversary?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
okay.
At that point, you have nowhere to go but up. I mean, it started. It was funny. You knew there was a lot of opportunity there. It was going to go well.
So that was the gag that got you hired? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay, I was going to say that's something you do once you're in the door.
Yeah. Tom knew the kind of humor he could get away with, I think, and it worked back then.
Oh, that's good.
And he's, I can still like twist his arm and get an Archie story out of him every once in a while, and they're, it's all the, Tom always talks about how the 5-page story is sort of the foundation for what he does, and if you ever get him to thumbnail a story, if you ever get to see him, they're really great. He doesn't do them anymore, but the ability to put a ton of story in an Archie story in 5 pages without it being dense visually or dense in dialogue is something I always, Tom, I always send it to new writers. Like, look at what Tom does. This is how he does it. Everything he does is right. And I wish I had any bad stories about you on this Rodney Dangerfield roast of the stars, but I am cheating the universe, because every time I buy a story off of you, I learn how to be a better editor.
Well, thank you, Mikey. You're the guy keeping me in the comic book industry.
I like in chat, I got to pull the picture up. Our buddy Neil says, there's Milo's birthday cake right there, all right?
That's actually Milo, the little kid with
that's Milo's little kid.
He's been hanging around for 50 years.
Tom, any other thoughts to Mike?
Just that I remember my first, Archie assignment in my current incarnation. Somebody had run into Sal and asked him if he'd like to draw an Archie story. Had run into Sal at a convention, and Sal said, I don't pencil anymore, but I'll link a story if you get Ron Friends to pencil it. So the guy said, yeah, we'd love to have Ron Friends pencil it. So the next thing I know, Ron calls me up. He says, so we have an assignment from Archie to do a story. Sal's going to ink it. I'm going to pencil it. And you should call up Archie and tell him you're going to write it. And I said, Ron, it doesn't work that way. I can't call them up and tell them I'm going to write it. He says, sure you can. Just call them. I said, I can call them up and ask them if I can write it, but I can't, tell them anything. Yeah. So anyway, I call up Mike, and I said, because I met Mike through Victor Gorelick, who was my first editor and my lifelong friend. And I said, hey, Mike, Ron Friends and Sal are going to be doing a story. And Mike says, do you want to write
it? That's awesome.
And then Ron started looking at Harry Lucy stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I wonder what this guy's going to do with the Archie style. And then he turns in the first page and he's like, I don't know if it's right there. Like, I feel pretty good. And I was like, holy crap, this is great. This is your first stab at this? And then we did a handful of them. And then I don't know, like, when the last time you ever thought of Archie, but like you got back into it very easily. Was it riding a bike, or was it weird to go back in time?
I don't know. It's I always loved the characters, and would often read the digest books and that sort of stuff, and it just the challenge of the 5-page story, still intrigues me.
Tom, have you really convinced them that that's not the same story you've been telling for?
Shut up! Shut up!
Wait a minute. Scott changed his name to Milo up there. Look at the text.
I'm Team Milo.
Team Milo. Howard, I can't not put this on because the show loves facade. And we want to know, Adam says in chat, who was facade after all these years? Can you tell us?
That's not for me. That's for Scott, right?
Facade? No, I didn't do anything. I don't know.
Did I do something with? I'm old. I don't remember.
Who is facade in the Spider-Man universe? The fans want to know.
No, not the Spider-Man universe. It was the Fantastic Four universe.
No, it's the or maybe that I don't know.
Steve Englehart character.
Oh, we're never gonna find out. The
Spider-Man
Spider-Man
character with that little squiggle under the sea. I don't think any.
Okay, all right. I'll tell you the truth.
Who was it?
Milo.
Hey, we have 2 more guests, but they're pre-recorded for you, Tom. Let me get these on the screen. Hold on.
My battery is about to die, so I'm going to jump off.
Okay.
And I just want to say thanks. This was a lot of fun. Tom, I love you, and congratulations. And I will. I'll probably be talking to you tomorrow.
Probably. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thanks, Howard.
Take care, guys. Bye.
We can roast Howard.
Yay!
Take care, Howard.
See you, Howard. Oh, chat says Terry Kavanaugh wrote facade, not Howard Mackie. So chat messed up. There we go. All right, but it still is Milo, right? Okay. We have 2 pre-recorded things that I got for you, Tom. So we're going to do this first one. We were just talking about the man, Sal Buscema. Here he comes.
Tom, just in case you couldn't tell, this is your Goomba, Sal. That's a little private joke between Italians. I won't be long-winded like usual, but wanted to let you know what a joy it has been working with you these many years. You're a very special individual, Tom, and your contribution to this industry has been immeasurable. You're a great talent, and here's to the next 50. Can't wait to see what you're going to do. Congratulations, my friend, and God bless.
Anyway, isn't that nice? I just love it.
Listen, Sal is, at this stage of the game, Sal's kind of a member of the family, with Ron, and he thinks he's going to be allowed to retire. we're going to allow him to, have that, illusion for, a couple more weeks, but somewhere along the line, we're going to drag him back in.
Chat loves Sal. I named that video when I upload it. Better call Sal Buscema on that. So he's such a nice guy.
He is the greatest.
He is.
Hey, Brad, are you keeping track of who's making more comments, Gregory Wright or Milo?
I am not. I'm running a lot of buttons, but I give it to Milo. I think he's having a good birthday party. He's probably 3 shades to the wind after that Archie panel. All right, we have one more pre-recorded guest for you, Tom. Let me pull this one up. I did this one the other day, so we have our friend Ralph Macchio. Here we go.
Oh.
Hey, Chief. This is Ralph Macchio. Just wanted to wish you a very happy 50th anniversary in our beloved field of illustrated fiction. Very few have contributed more in that time than you have. You've been around since even before I was in the 70s, and you made an incredible mark on the business, and not only at Marvel but elsewhere. But this is a great anniversary, and it's well deserved that it gets celebrated. I'm sure you remember a couple of the funny things that happened with us. When you were being sworn in as editor-in-chief, and we had that very uncomfortable meeting with Mike Hobson where the editorial staff was there,
This is after they had let Shooter go and you were coming in, and everybody sitting at the table was very tense because we've been through a very tough period. And you were sitting there, remember, with your hands folded, and Mike was introducing you. And I said, one point, just to break the tension, and I, as you know, I never say anything at these meetings. And Mike was kind of surprised that I said something, and he called on me, and I said, you know, Mike, I thought this time we were going to get somebody good. Remember that everybody cracked up. That kind of broke the tension, which I was very happy to do, and I thought that it was just one of those things that worked out. And the other thing that was pretty funny was the time that I had come into your office to talk to you, and you had gotten a phone call, and you had swiveled around in your big editor-in-chief chair, and I had seen a bunch of your cards there, your business cards. And because you were turned away from me and it looks like it was going to be a big business call, I just took the time to pick up a bunch of them and to change the name from Tom DeFalco to Tom DeFatso. I thought it was a joke, and I thought, I'll just put these back in. Nobody will ever look at them. It'll be, good for a laugh if Tom ever picks it up. Well, about a week or so later, I remember that you had a big meeting with either the Hasbro executives or one of the other toy company executives, and you were handing out your cards to them. And then it seemed as if one of the guys said to you, "Have you looked at your cards recently?" Which you hadn't. You saw Tom DeFatso replacing Tom DeFalco. And for some crazy reason, you knew it was me, because after those guys were gone, you took the cards and came running down to my office and threw them on the desk. And with mock anger, you said, I know who did this. And I pretended just complete shock and surprise. How would you think this was me? I know it was you, Ralph. I know it was you. And it was. So you got me on that one. So we have many more funny incidents, and hopefully we'll have many more funny ones in the future, too. But those were a couple of ones that were memorable. So once again, happy 50th, Chief, and 50 more in the business, because they need you.
There you go. What do you think of the business cards getting swapped out?
I was sitting in a meeting with the president of Hasbro, and our main contact with them. We were discussing, we would work together on G.I. Joe and Transformers and a couple of other things, and cementing our relationship to go forward. And the president reached over. He looked and he says, "When was the last time you looked at your business cards?" and he showed me it, and I just cracked up, and I turned to him. I said, "This is the kind of place we have." And they said, "Well, that's why we enjoy doing business with you guys."
Did you ever get even with him for messing with your cards?
No, I don't think so. I actually kind of thought it was funny.
Chat, if you want to write a few things to Tom, or I have a few questions. We're going to wrap it up in just a little bit. We're going to go around the horn and get some final thoughts out of everybody, and we'll end with Tom. Final thoughts. Steve wants to know about an action figure, Tom. The Allison Mongrain package was supposed to be Baby May, or was it supposed to be Aunt May? What did you do?
I always thought it was Baby May.
Right.
When they decided it was Aunt May, I thought, we kept showing a crib in those scenes.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me.
Yeah. The chat's coming in fast. Tom, how was it with working with the late great Mark Grunwald?
It was an honor and a privilege. Mark and I were a team together. When I first came on staff at Marvel as an editor, I was only supposed to be there for about 6 months, and I was supposed to be training Mark to be an editor. He was going to replace me. and they gave us an office that was so small. The only way we could fit in both desks were having them facing each other, and it proved to be very convenient because we would pass the artwork back and forth, across the desk. And Mark was always great. He he was a total idea factory. He'd come up with idea after idea, and the industry still misses him.
Milo again wants to know when's there's going to be a Tom DeFalco omnibus out of Marvel.
Probably never.
Oh,
I can't see that ever happening.
Oh, I don't.
Hey, Tom, I just have to say one of my favorite things about you and Mark when you work together, and I know we've talked about this before, but at DC, and I'm assuming it's at Marvel, you know that there were times when you and I were working there where DC would like send a book to a printer and they say, we got to print on Friday. And then on Wednesday, they said, this story doesn't work. Can you make it a different story? It's like crazy. Like it was that crazy, guys. No lie. It was like crazy. It's insanity. But what you and Mark used to do, like you're sometimes I think the strongest influence you had, like you would read the make readies. And that was the first. And if you tell everybody like what make readies are and just tell that story, because I always found that to be invaluable.
The make readies are the comic book without the cover. We would get it a week or so before it shipped.
Yeah. And so the book would be all printed. And that was the only time that you guys commented on the books, like as opposed to what we were going through, which was they were doing it every 2 minutes. But I just love the fact that you guys were so supportive of your editors that you weren't trying to micromanage them all the time. You'd wait for the make readies to come in, and maybe you'd pull somebody in and you'd say, do you really want Scott Lobdell writing this book? Is it a little dicey? But you never.
I ask that question constantly.
but you never to the best of my knowledge, I wasn't editorial, but you never went in and said, no, this isn't working, get rid of this and bring him in and do this. You were, you guys were supportive in your suggestions and stuff. Would you say that's accurate? Or?
That's pretty accurate. Basically, Mark and I would look at the sales figures, and if we saw that a book was, trending down, we would pick up the last 5 or 6 issues, sit there and read them, and try to figure out what was going wrong. And sometimes we could pinpoint something, and the tragic thing is every once in a while we'd read all 6 issues, and we'd look at each other and say, this is a terrific book. We can't figure out why the hell it's not selling. But sometimes you could look at it and say, oh, I can tell you why this is not selling, because the guy is, starts everything with a close-up. Every splash panel is a close-up, and it's, they follow a formula. I always remember one particular guy. We looked and we said, wait a minute. He always, starts with a personal scene that runs for about 10 or 12 pages, and then on page 15 there's a fight that lasts for 4 pages, and then he has his cliffhanger. And it was every issue was the same thing. He said, it's boring. Because the readers would figure out what was going on. Inside baseball. Anyway.
I mean, you wouldn't go in and fire anybody. You always let the
No. I felt that it was up to the editors. The editors had to work with their creative team. They had to, they had to decide who they wanted working for them. And if I could see something wasn't working, I would say this is not working, and then assume that the editors would be able to, convey that to the creative team.
Those were the days, eh?
Yeah, I mean, many a time an editor would come into me and saying, this writer is just driving me crazy, and I don't know what to do. And I would say to him, imagine if you had total control over this book, that whatever you wanted, you could make happen. And he said, yeah. And I said, what would you do? And he said, well, I'd probably, fire him and hire so-and-so. I said, well, you have total control over the book. So if that's what you want to do it.
We got a few more chat coming in for you, Tom. We got SoFlo says, what's your favorite Spider-Man story?
My favorite Spider-Man story?
Yep. Probably the one you wrote. I mean, the favorite one you wrote.
Oh, the favorite one that I wrote?
Yeah.
Isn't it the one where he walks in with the big cake, the wedding cake?
I think it was
Milo,
a story.
yeah.
I think it was a story called "Whatever Happened to Crusher Hogan."
Oh yeah,
because it kind of had all the elements of what made a good Spider-Man story to me.
Yep. Mr. Comics has a follow-up. What's the favorite Spider-Man issue that you didn't write?
Hello.
Yeah.
Have you ever read one that you didn't read?
Yeah, I'm trying. There are so many that I have always loved.
Here, I'll full screen the dog. Hold on. Here,
the dog wants to get out.
The dog needs to go.
He said, my dog said, if I have to spend 5 more minutes listening to Tom DeFalco.
There are just too many that I love. Like, not one pops into mind right away.
The go-to Amazing Fantasy 15. There you go. Go for that one. Gary and the Frozen's ticked at Ron Friends. He's waiting on a commission.
He's hard as work as we look at him.
He's hard at work. Javi says, big thank you to everyone for their contributions to Spider-Man.
You're welcome.
Adam wants to know, Tom, what was it that inspired you to make the Phil Urich Green Goblin a heroic goblin?
Because he was going to star in his own title. So we wanted to, do a slacker hero, something different.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with that book.
Right. Matt has a similar question, but let's aim it towards Thor. What's your favorite Thor that you wrote?
Your favorite Thor story?
Yeah.
Jesus.
The one where he fought Jesus?
No.
It was whatever happened to Hogan the Grim.
Who said that?
We were late that month, so we just went in and changed all the name.
Listen. I don't remember the issue number or what, but in the scene, Eric was he was Thor's secret identity at the time, and he had been fighting with his ex-wife for custody of his son, and I think they had to go to the Black Galaxy, and it looked like it was going to be a suicide mission. So Eric decided that he had to, spoiler alert, that sort of thing. The story was published, 30 years ago, so I don't know if I beat a spoiler alert. But anyway, he had to give up custody of his son to make sure that his son was taken care of in the event that he didn't come back. And then after he did this, he kind of collapsed in Hercules' arms. And I always think of that as really, Ron did such a great scene. He had me in tears as I was writing it. So I don't think I think those 2 pages were silent because I couldn't think of any words that did justice to those beautiful pictures, and that scene always haunted me.
Steve says that he remembers those early editorial pages of the 90s comics. You were just drawn chomping on cigars and screaming at people.
Yeah. Here's a secret behind comics. So at one point, Steve Saffo was doing Marvel Age, and Rick Parker came in and said, we're thinking of doing a strip called The Boss Man that's going to make fun of you guys. And Mark and I said, okay. And they gave us the first couple of strips, and Mark and I looked at it and said, they're not vicious enough. So we rewrote it to make ourselves look even stupider. And when the guys saw what we had done, they said, so no boundaries, just as long as they can be printed in the Marvel Comics, we're good with that.
Nice.
And when I show up at conventions, people are surprised that I'm not chopping on a cigar. Screaming at people.
We're going to end with the last chat comment from Milo, of course. What's the biggest thing you learned from your 50 years in comics?
You got to keep struggling to get better. You just got to keep struggling to get better. Because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
So let's go around the horn and we'll do some final thoughts for Tom. Mike, final thoughts for Tom on 50 years in comics.
Tom, you've done great so far in the first 50 years. The next 50 is when you're going to really not struggle anymore and you're going to get really good at this. I can't wait to work with you for 50 years. You're the best. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Mike.
Mariano, final thoughts to Tom.
Just thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for all the great stuff you've done in the last 50, and let's keep it going.
Well, thank you.
Hornacek in chat says the trick is always hire Ron friends. Bob, final thoughts for Tom. Bob.
Well, I would just say I feel very lucky I had the opportunity to work with Tom as I did. I don't think we ever had a cross word for each other. He was always supportive. He always found new opportunities and new challenges to throw my way. And as a boss, couldn't ask for a better boss. I remember one Christmas, I think every Christmas he gave me a bottle of whiskey or something as a present. I forget exactly what. But he would hand it to me and he would say, Bob, best thing I can tell you is I don't have to bother looking at your stuff because I know it's done okay. And that's about as high a praise as you can get from somebody who you're working for. So it was really, a wonderful experience working with you. Thank you.
Listen, thank you. You guys made me look good.
I like what Hornacek said about Scott. It says Scott's dog is tired of this Tom DeFalco tribute. So, Scott, your final thoughts, and your dogs too, for that matter.
I have a question, and then I have a final thought. My question, Tom, is how many years did you have to shave off to get down to 50 years in comics? Like, who is buying this? And secondly, I just want to say thank you for being you, because if you weren't one of us, would have to be you, and that would suck. So
I love it. Does the dog have anything to say? The dog is passed out.
Empty bowl knocks him.
What's
so
the dog
50
name?
years in dog years? What does that come to, I wonder? Her name is Ruby. R-U-B-Y.
Well, don't
I'll
take your
change
love
your
to
name
town.
tomorrow to Milo.
Milo, the dog. I love it. Danny, final thoughts.
Well, I want to just point out and thank you, Brad, for bringing us all together, but also for putting us all on a comic book page. And,
these are
I want
panels,
to point out that we're all such comic book people that we have framed ourselves to leave room for word balloons in our panels. So we are, if we didn't know we were lifers, we certainly are.
Too many medium shots.
Tom, you're the best, and you know, let's keep on keeping on together.
Carl, final thoughts.
Yeah, I knew at the time, that period when I was on the editorial staff and Tom was the EIC, that the culture that we had there was a unique, unfortunately, all too unique combination of professionalism and fun. And that balance was always perfect. And that was a large part due to Tom and to Mark. And I knew I was lucky to be a part of that and to be there at the time. I just didn't know how exactly rare it was. I've worked in a number of places since then. I've encountered anything like that since, and they spoiled me.
Awesome. And last but not least, well, we'll end with Tom, but I want to hear Ron's final thoughts to Tom. You've been extra behaved. You've been very behaved tonight, by the way, Ron.
I am not here to make trouble, Brad. It seems a lot longer than 50 years. But I think that's just because it was life. You know, I mean, Tom and I became friends, and the working together thing all became secondary. You know, but it's a terrific working relationship. I couldn't ask for a better one, and I've looked, and nobody's stepped up. So as long as he wants to keep doing it, I'll keep doing it. But you know, he is a good man, and I'm proud to know him, and happy to call him family.
Oh, Tom, the man of the hour. This has been your life. You get the final word.
I want to thank all you guys for saying, you know, so many nice things, and you know, being so supportive and everything. And I wish I was as good as you guys are making me out to be.
You're better.
You know, I just, you know, like I say, I keep thinking, you know, it's always a struggle to keep on going. But, you know, guys, I really do appreciate, you know, listen, I'm a writer. I talk better in second draft, and I'm blowing this thing. I love all of you guys. I
love you too, Tom.
You know.
And I want to personally thank you, Tom, for so many years of entertainment, and also to Ron and Hildy for trusting me to broadcast this for you. So thank you so much. This has been a pleasure.
And Tom, now that you've found out how to use video on a computer, we should do this again.
Sounds like a plan.
On that last insult of the roast of Tom DeFalco, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Vinkman with chat. We love Tom DeFalco. Yes, we do. We love Tom DeFalco a lot. So
thank you, everyone. Just thank you.
And thank you for putting all this together. Thank you.
No problem.
Fantastic job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good job, Brad.